time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobler. Just got to unmute your microphone right there.
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. There was just breaking news. I had to redo my whole slideshow.
What do you mean? What breaking news?
The bill passed the Senate.
Yeah. I mean, we knew that was going to happen. You had to redo the whole thing over that?
Well, I had to redo the text.
Yeah, I guess you had to say, I guess you
because otherwise the whole text was, yes, and these people might not vote for it, so.
Oh, yeah, all right. You put some of that in there. Yeah, no, it was pretty, I mean, it's been obvious that it was going to pass, I think, since, Sunday's show. It was just a matter of going through this whole vote-a-rama, whatever they're calling it, but we'll find out. We got some segments on that. So, I get my news from Russell. Russell gets his news from me. That's how we find out what's going on is, I tell him what I'm going to do. He tells me what he's going to do. And I just wait to find out. Wait to see what's going on. Wait to see what the scoop is. They got the Alligator Alcatraz opening today. We're going to talk about that. Got a lot to talk about today on this Tuesday afternoon. So thanks, everybody, very much for being here. Nice crowd in here. Start things off. 580 strong in the YouTube chat. 341 filing in over on Rumble. Let's smash that like button, everybody. Smash that subscribe button and smash that follow button. It is 90 degrees in New York, but I don't feel like it.
That's why I have the AC cranked. Can you vamp for a couple minutes? Because I had to do that. I gotta go get my coffee now.
Oh, because you had to do that? Yeah, all right, fine. Yeah.
Right.
Russell had to redo the show, so now he's got to go get coffee. Even though it's 90 degrees, he's going to drink hot coffee. He complains about the heat. Now he's going to go get a scorching hot cup of coffee. I have iced coffee today. I need caffeine today. I felt like I didn't have enough. The first cup of coffee didn't stick, so I left some in the pot, and then you make iced coffee later. It's 90 degrees outside. It's very warm. But this is how you know that... This is how you know you've made it as a podcaster, but it's also a warning sign that the podcaster life is getting to you, because despite the fact that it is apparently very hot outside, I actually feel chilly. I feel cold because we have the air conditioner on in the apartment, and I have no frame of reference because, now that I do this, I hardly spend any time outside. I just basically live in a bunker, online and on the computer, on the phone. Just researching stuff, putting together stuff. I work inside. I don't commute. And so, I have not spent much time at all. I don't think I've spent more than an hour outside combined in the last, 4 or 5 days. I walk my dog twice a day. So I get out there. But other than that, I'm inside a lot. So I'm actually cold now. I'm actually borderline uncomfortable. My feet are actually kind of cold. I feel a little chilly, even though it's 90 degrees out. So that's how you know the podcast life is getting to you, when you feel cold in July in the 90 degrees.
Why you feel cold now?
Well, I was telling the audience, I was saying the reason I feel cold, I think, is because I just have not been outside much in the past 5 days. So I don't have a frame of reference. My body doesn't know it's 90 degrees out and to feel good that it's room temperature in here. I'm in an air conditioned place for the last few days straight, and the air conditioning does feel a little much now. My feet feel a little cold, even though it should be refreshing because it is quite warm. It is quite warm outside.
You got that juice circulation?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. But it's not just
it's drafty in here.
Yeah, it
there's such a draft.
It does feel kind of drafty. I gotta say that. So yeah, I gotta get outside more. That's the solution, I suppose. All right, folks. Well, we are ready to roll. Thanks everybody very much for being here. Let's smash that like button up to 196 likes. Let's get up to 666 as fast as we can. All right, folks, today is a historic day. It's a historic day. Trump plans to visit Florida's new migrant detention center, Alligator Alcatraz, opening tomorrow, apparently. They got it together very quickly. President Trump is due in Florida on Tuesday to visit what's been dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, a controversial migrant detention center in the Everglades that the state has stood up in a matter of days. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke about the president's trip at an unrelated news conference on Monday. So let's find out a little bit more about Alligator Alcatraz.
Bring people in there. They ain't going anywhere once they're there unless you want them to go somewhere, because good luck getting to civilization. So the security is amazing. But what... Natural.
God bless America. What a great country this is. Laugh about the people getting mauled by alligators. Wow. What a place. What a country.
They used to call me Inshore Ron. Now they're going to call me Gator Ron.
Gator Ron, yeah.
Woohoo.
Yeah. Natural and otherwise. But what it can be, I think, is an effective way to increase the number of removals and deportations, which ultimately, if you don't do that, you're going to continue to have this problem of illegal immigration. So you'll be able to bring people in, they'll get processed, they have an order of removal, then they can be queued, and the federal government can fly right on the runway, right there. You literally drive them 2,000 feet, put them on a plane, and then they're gone. It's very logistically simple, but what we're also going to do is, this idea of immigration judge, these are not Article 3 judges. They're not federal judges like we think of. These are executive branch employees who are called immigration judges. So you can have you can deputize different employees to do that. So we've offered some of our National Guardsmen to be able to serve as immigration judges. So
some amazing things to just admit. Now, when we say judges and hearings, we don't actually mean you get a fair hearing. We're just going to stick a National Guard guy and call him an immigration judge. It's all under the executive branch. So you might say you're getting a hearing, but you're not actually getting a hearing. It's all for show.
Yeah, we call it the Roy Bean Initiative.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's amazing.
In the old days, you didn't need any legal training to be a judge, and that's how this great country was built. We're just going to grab people off the streets and give them judicial authority. Worked for them. Worked for the pioneers.
These aren't real judges. These aren't up from the judicial branch. These are executive branch employees. Yeah, we just, stick a National Guard guy in there. Here's your hearing. All right, what's your case? All right, very good. Get on the plane. That's all.
what you could have is, okay, someone's a criminal alien, they obviously fast track. Someone has an order of deportation, okay, fast track. Someone may have just gotten picked up. They come, they can get like a notice to appear. Biden would tell you to come in 2 years. I mean, under the Trump administration, it's usually within, 14 to 30 days. But we can have our National Guard acting as immigration judges right on site. So you go, maybe you have a day or two, whatever, and then a decision's made. And then that's it. So
so he's saying plain as day right there that this is not going to be limited to violent criminals, the worst of the worst. That's the word out of Trump and his team. That's not what Ron is saying. Ron is saying, yeah, we'll have the criminals there. They get fast tracked, but then we're also going to have people with deportation orders, meaning non-criminals who are ordered out of the country. And then people who we just pick up, we could send them there and then we could ship them out from there. So he's just saying, look, this is not limited to criminals, the worst of the worst. That's the word out of the White House. But obviously, he kind of stepped on the narrative there. Now, here's Donald Trump on his way to Alligator Alcatraz. We have some footage of him there, which we'll show later. But this is him in the morning on the way to the airplane, very excited about the prospect. Steve Ducey asked, with Alligator Alcatraz, is the idea that if some illegal immigrant escapes, they just get eaten by an alligator? Ever stop to have to pinch yourself and say, is this real life? Is this actually real? But yep, it's actually real.
It's like RoboCop.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
The idea that if some illegal immigrants escape, they just get eaten by an alligator or a snake or something? I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. That's his answer. He goes on. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept. If snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%. Okay.
So, in addition to being just comically sadistic, that is in fact wrong. It's debunked. That you're supposed
stand up! The American rally stand up!
Yeah, it's actually wrong. You are not supposed to run away from an alligator in a zigzag. That's
not true?
No, that's actually not true. That's actually not true. You're supposed
it's a
to
good
run.
thing you told me that. I would have tried it.
Yeah, right. It's a good see. You learn life skills. No, alligators are
Comes
actually
up a lot here in Manhattan.
Yeah, alligators are actually not particularly dangerous animals. It's very, very rare that a person is attacked by an alligator. 1.3 million alligators.
But if you are, the zigzag method isn't going to save you.
No.
That's
So
what
first
you're
of all,
telling me.
there are a ton of alligators in Florida. 1.3 million. There are 2 million alligators in Louisiana, so they're everywhere. I mean, they're like deer down south in that area.
Yeah.
I mean, they're everywhere, and they pose almost no danger to people. So,
I mean, there was that
question,
dude the last time they had a flood in New Orleans a couple years ago. There was that dude who got eaten by an alligator.
It
in his
happens.
backyard.
It doesn't never happen, but given how many alligators there are down there, it's very, very unlikely that you are going to be harmed by one. They're actually very rare. And the reason for that is because as long as you are not stupid, like you should never go swimming at night, right? Because the alligators are in the water, right? So, stay out of the lakes at night. But if one encounters you on land, yes, they do run fast, but in very short stretches. They get tired very, very quickly and easily. So if you beeline a 50-yard dash and you sprint in a straight line, it's almost impossible that they're going to catch you. They can sprint for, a few feet, and then they're going to have to stop and take a breath. So if you run, you should be fine. So yeah, the zigzag, you don't really need to zigzag. Zigzag, that's a good way to fall. You zigzag, you trip over your feet, now you're in trouble. Now they get you. Now you're in trouble.
Then they're on you.
Then they're on you. Exactly. So you're not actually supposed to run in a zigzag. That's a myth at this point. Glad we could clear that up. We give, life-saving advice here at the Due Dissidence podcast. But who was very excited?
A segment.
Yeah, we should. We should. Well, we might have to. We might have to do alligator survival tutorials in Trump's America. That might be very, very high value content.
That was not on my bingo card.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes. Yeah. The Jewish alligator hunters will be like the Jewish Steve Irwin. Yeah. So who was excited to meet Donald Trump there? Betty Johnson. Betty Johnson. Oh, this is content. This is real content if your audience are a bunch of mean-spirited, closeted morons. So here's Betty Johnson. On my way to Alligator Alcatraz. Get ready for an incredible day with President Trump at America's new detention facility for criminal aliens. Follow along. Here he is on the way. He's getting his money's worth today.
This morning, we are locked and ready to go out in the Everglades. We are on our way to Alligator Alcatraz. We've been seeing alligators all along the road, actually. I've seen like 30 of them as we've been driving out.
So exciting.
Today, get ready. We're going to bring you along with the president as he visits America's newest detention facility for criminal aliens, this time surrounded by alligators. We're going to be bringing you with us. Get ready. It's going to be an incredible day. I'm very excited for it. Here we go.
Okay, we have a lot more. Imagine how sick you have to be to unironically absorb this as entertaining content.
Right.
Imagine the kind of person you have to be to get really, Benny Johnson's going to Alligator Alcatraz today. Today we're going to learn all about how the immigrants are going to be surrounded by snakes and alligators, and if they get out, they're going to get eaten. And we hope that doesn't happen. Of course they do. Of course they can't
Hey,
wait to hear a news story.
listen, to sell this idea, I need the whitest, dumbest chud with a podcast with the whitest, dumbest audience. What about that Benny guy, the Fugazi guy?
The Fugazi guy.
He'll come.
He lives in Florida. He does, so it's an easy drive for him. Although not that easy. This is way out. I mean, this was a 4-hour drive from where he was. This is out in the middle of nowhere. That's the point. The point is, even if they get out, they'll get eaten by alligators. And don't we just love the thought of immigrants getting eaten by alligators? Because aren't we such losers that that's what we think about? That is a thought that actually gives us pleasure. We get a dopamine hit from thinking about an immigrant getting eaten by an alligator. Just arrived at Alligator Alcatraz. Check out this Jurassic Park-style entrance. 30-foot walls. I don't know what he's talking about. Razor wire, armed guards. None of this existed a week ago. Insanity. Impressive from the state of Florida. Mosquitoes swarming me by the thousands. Millions of gators. Hell on earth. Very excited that he's getting bitten by mosquitoes.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to Alligator.
I forgot to edit that out. He says, welcome.
Well, 3, 2, 1.
Well, okay. All right. Don't sound gay in 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Well, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Alligator Alcatraz.
Guys, I told you I needed the mosquito spray. All right, hang on. Let me get on my game, Faith. Let me get on my game. All right, guys.
Cut. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hey, we're here at Alligator Alcatraz.
Makeup.
Yeah.
Well, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Alligator Alcatraz. The entrance here is a 30-foot tall wall. None of this was here 5 days ago. It's got razor wire on the top. Just unbelievably impressive what the state of Florida has done here. Over my shoulder is the actual facility. As you can see, we'll be entering soon. This is the entry gate for Alligator Alcatraz. Got mosquitoes everywhere. They're like playing. There you go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Not a fun place.
Unbelievable. What unbelievable freakery this is. And once again, folks,
ignore my resemblance to at least 10 famous serial killers.
Yeah, right, exactly. I joke, but I don't joke. I say there's a homoerotic strain. There's nothing wrong with being gay. There is absolutely something wrong with processing your feelings in this way, with celebrating the torture of immigrants as a way of hiding a reckoning with who you really are. Just be who you are. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
This is the fascism cha-cha. You disempower people.
Right.
And then once they're disempowered, then you are able to manipulate them into joining your cause by giving them a false sense of empowerment that's usually directed at scapegoating and other, that they can feel like they're vicariously getting some power through the state's abuse of.
Exactly. And that's why I don't really let it go, because I don't really mean it. I mean, it's funny as the gag, but it's also like, yes, his content is tailored to traumatized people who have no sense of self-worth and who don't have the fortitude to pursue fulfillment in a healthy and constructive way. Instead,
or the means.
Right.
Or the means.
Or the means. Instead, they get off on, look at what he's saying. He's here to, this is hell on earth. We're sending, and Ron DeSantis just told you a minute ago, not criminals, not violent criminals. No, people who get rounded up. They're going to take them out to a prison in what is essentially an uninhabitable part of the country. I mean, there's nothing out there. There's no civilization there for a reason. Surrounded by predatory animals. And this is supposed to be like entertainment. Like, you really have to be a psychologically damaged person to get off on this. But
right.
He makes a lot of money feeding this shit to very broken people.
Oh yeah, and these sick fucks, they're gonna do what Bukele did. They're gonna release these very Michael Bay kind of very heavy power chord kind of music videos of all the immigrants at Alligator Alcatraz.
Yep.
To be put in prison. You do not want to go here. Obviously, this is going to be a 5,000-bed federal facility. President Trump will be here soon. I'm getting swarmed by mosquitoes right now, and we saw at least 30 alligators on our way in driving. It is in the middle of truly nowhere. It took us an hour, 4-hour drive to get here today. It's crazy. Look at that. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. As far as the eye can see, you go in, you don't come out. And if you do, the alligators get you. And the mosquitoes. Jeez. All right. Okay, we'll show you inside. Follow along. It's going to be amazing.
All right. I mean, what a contemptible twerp. But he goes inside.
You have got to be so confident that there will never be a people's revolution that involves throwing class traitors to the alligators to even do a segment like that.
Exactly. You're really setting up the opposition to do what you are doing to them.
Yeah, you're really suggesting what the punishment should be for class enemies.
You're giving Elon Musk a lot of ideas. Let's put it that way. Yes. All right. So here he is inside the facility. So how many beds to a cell? It's like 8. Bears inside Alligator Alcatraz. This was put together in days. See, this is what the government can do when they want to torture people. Right? When they have to give you health care or something like that, they can't do it. But they could throw this
housing.
up in days. Yeah.
Housing.
No, they can't build low-income housing for, poor people.
If you threw all those resources into building housing, wow.
Right. What about building like housing for law-abiding poor people? No, they can't do that. No. How are you going to pay for that? It's a waste of this. They could throw up in days in the middle of a fucking swamp. Gets worse though, folks. It gets worse. As if this cannot get any more grotesque. Here's Benny Johnson repping some Alligator Alcatraz merch. That's right. He says, I repeat, this prison has merch. Things are going insanely well.
Know that there's official Alligator Alcatraz merch. There it is, provided to us by the state of Florida. Incredible. And, would you rock this drip? Look at that.
So no, look, we know a lot of these people get paid. We know how this works. We know the gig flow. Even if they don't get actual checks, we know they get set up with shit like this. Hey, you're going to hawk this Alligator Alcatraz.
He's going to sell that,
Yeah, he's going to make a lot of money on that. You know who else is going to make a lot of money on that? That's not just a podcaster, Griff. No, that's the Florida Republican Party. So the Florida GOP tweets out, Feds approve Alligator Alcatraz, Florida's gator-guarded prison for illegal aliens. Surrounded by swamps and pythons, it's a one-way ticket to regret. Grab our merch to support tough-on-crime borders. Limited supply. Get yours before the gators do. So Duke Chastain says illegals should be made to hunt the pythons. Solve 2 problems at once. Didn't they put the pythons there? Weren't you saying something about that?
Yeah. They escaped. They're not native, and now they're like at war with the alligators.
Yeah,
it's like a fucking Predator movie out there.
Yeah. So Deborah Garrett says maybe a bunch will escape. Of course, they're hoping that some do try to escape. They can't wait for that headline to hear that someone got eaten by an alligator. Billings Raiders. Here's the more prudent conservative. Says even if you support this, it isn't something a decent person celebrates with merch like it's a sporting event. Yeah, you think so?
Now look, if you can put in writing for everyone that orders this that supporting fascistic sadism is going to get you a job and a woman, well, that's another story.
Right.
That's another story.
Right.
But unless you're going to make that guarantee, you're really just exploiting people's misery, right?
Yes.
Right? Isn't that what this is?
Well, that is, yes, 100% what this is. So here comes some of the negative comments, and there were quite a few, thankfully.
Okay.
Go fuck yourselves, you absolute fascist, disgusting pigs who are going to all go to the Bible tomorrow like this is anything that Jesus would approve of. You pieces of shit. Well said. Peter Kelly says this goes beyond the banality of evil to outright glorification of evil. Yes, absolutely. And if you look, they didn't quite get ratioed because it's a Republican account. But they got close. 154 comments to 177 likes.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and only 177 likes out of 74,000 views. So really, the post was not a big hit, thankfully. But yeah, there it is. There's the merch. There's the line of merch for Alligator Alcatraz. unisex tees, women's tees, men's tees, baseball caps, little coolie sleeves or whatever they call them. And here is Donald Trump at the facility. Hours later, he arrived. So let's take a quick listen.
There's Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet.
See, that's not what Ron DeSantis said yesterday.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, well, that's how
governor,
they sell it.
Right. That's how they sell it. But once again, the guy who built it, we just showed you the video a few minutes ago. Ron DeSantis said this is going to be for, we're going to house some criminals here, but there's going to be people without criminal records who just have deportation orders. And we're going to have, new people who we just pick up who are not supposed to be here. So this is not just the most vicious people, as he's saying.
Some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. And a lot of these people are self-deporting back to their country where they came from. Quite a few. We're amazed at actually the number. We took the FEMA money that Joe Biden allocated to pay for the free luxury hotel rooms, where he's paying hundreds of millions of dollars in New York City, and we used it to build this project. And Narana was just a little fraction of that money. The money they spent on that project, I happen to know the real estate developer. He's a he never really made that much, but he became very wealthy. With luxury, he didn't do well. With people that are not exactly luxury, he's made a fortune.
Very good. Great to hear.
Now, this is phase one. Phase two is destroy the country so that nobody wants to come here, so that we don't have this problem again in a few years, because who's going to want to come to this hellhole by the time we're done with it?
Right. Pretty soon, between deportations, closing the border, killing off the poor, and discouraging anybody else from coming, pretty soon there will be hardly any people here, except rich people and enough middle-class people to service us. And that's it.
It's going to be like, you ever been to Buffalo? It's all going to be like Buffalo. It's going to be they're going to make a song, My Own Private Buffalo. That's what the country's going to be.
Exactly, yes.
Like
my own
3
private
people
Buffalo.
per 100 square miles. That's the ideal.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So, folks, look, we've had audience members give us this feedback, and I don't disagree with it, that obviously, Obama's record on this issue was horrible. Biden's record on this issue was horrible. They sicked ICE on people with very little to no due process, and all that's true. There is a marked difference, and it is not insignificant, between doing that and doing that plus this. When you merchandise it and you glorify it to this extent, we talked about this on the last show. Russell put it this way. It's very, very true. This is an effort to manufacture consent for essentially torture. Like, you're basically making an effort, a direct effort, to get as many people on board with the vicious mistreatment of an out group. And once you manufacture consent to treat a group of people that way, it becomes much easier to treat other groups of people that way.
Right.
And that is, if we're being honest, if we're not just, obfuscating, that is a key difference between the way Trump is going about this and the way his predecessors did. That is not to excuse the abuses of his predecessors. It is to simply make what I think is a pretty urgent observation right now, which is that you're whipping people into a frenzy to basically support torture. That's essentially what this is. And not only doing it with a smile on your face, but merchandising it, right? Marketing it, commodifying it. It's
so
really
I'm saying,
sick shit.
There's like RoboCop, where they would have the parody ads on RoboCop, many of which had these kind of sadistic fascist overtones.
Right.
Of like electrocuting the car burglar.
Yes, exactly. So it's really sick stuff. It really is very sick. And look, I'm glad that that post got the amount of pushback that it did. I think there are some people who maybe even if they, support the immigration platform of Trump are still a little bit like, what are we going to go here? There are protesters out there now. I know Status Quo has a camera person out there. I don't know if they started yet. No, they're having tech problems. Yeah, they had to restart. That's the thing. It's hard to get a live stream going from out there. It's the middle of fucking nowhere. It's really insane what they've done. And they're talking about how they want other states to do this. Yeah, we want other states to do this too. We want other states to build their own Alligator Alcatraz, their own version of that. Whatever. Arizona, the Prairie Dog Penitentiary. Hey, if they run out of, they escape, a prairie dog will come and bite their cock off. What do you think about that? You don't want to run out there.
Those coyotes are vicious.
Those coyotes are vicious. Those prairie dogs are small, but they're fast. They're fast. They are. They are fast little rascals. My babysitter had a prairie dog. Yeah. Garter snakes. Yeah, all kinds of diamondback snakes. Exactly. So, yeah, you could just have like a dystopian wildlife, prison expo. All 50 states,
Yeah, it's getting ugly, man. We're going to be doing a story about a woman. She might lose an eye in Australia. And part of what's interesting about that story, part of why I wanted to cover it, is the laws that they've passed in Australia now against protest. It looks like a false flag was done probably by Zionists to get this draconian legislation through. And that's something we all very much worry about here. And certainly this crew and their allegiance to Mossad and the state of Israel would suggest that we might see something like that sooner rather than later. So what's going to stop them from sending protesters to Alligator Alcatraz? That's it. Once they normalize this, then everyone that they define as an enemy of the state is going to be subject eventually to this kind of treatment, unless there's enough pushback to put a stop to it. If they're allowed to get away with this, it's only the beginning.
Yep, I agree. All right. What do we got over here? We got some super chats rolling in. Cats are people too. Thanks for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate that. Fat Not So Fat says AI provision was stripped from the bill, but Medicare cuts stayed, and Palantir gets few billion from increased spending budget. Shit, he's so gay. Thanks, Fat Not So Fat. Brendan McNamara says detention centers in 2 weeks. High speed rail never. Yeah, exactly. Good point. Rosebud says Alligator Alcatraz is my county, and it's completely horrible how it's been made into entertainment for sociopaths. Oh, I'm sure there will be like store. I'm sure all the gas stations will sell hats, around here with the merchandise.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll merchandise that shit. They'll get in on that.
That'll be all along 95. You'll be able to buy that.
Exactly. Get firecrackers and Alligator Alcatraz merch.
Do they still have what was that? What was that really racist Mexican chain? You would hit those signs all the way down. It was
south of the border.
Yeah, south of the border.
Well, that
sign broken. Pedro fix.
Yeah, south of the border, as I understand. I mean, I've been to south of the border. That's right on the border of North Carolina, South Carolina, right? That's right when you enter South Carolina. They call that south of the border. I'm pretty sure that's where
when you're coming down 95, those signs. I mean, the last time I did,
it's a big attraction.
I haven't done it in forever.
Yeah. No, it is a big attraction.
I'm sure people in the chat know. I have not driven that route literally in decades.
Yeah, I haven't driven that in a while. We used to do it every year because I used to go and visit my Jewish grandparents for Christmas every year. So we would drive down every year for like 7 years in a row. But yeah, we're talking about like 20 years ago now.
All right, folks in the chat, do they still have those like really racist south of the border signs with Pedro the mascot? Do they still have that?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Let's see what the chat has to say. Miles Tegg says, now imagine this, alligators with lasers. George R. from Australia. Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Hillary Hinton says, sometimes I really miss NYC, but as Lou Reed said, the city is a funny place, something like a circus or a sewer. Enjoy the circus, Russ, but take care. We can't afford to lose you. Thanks, Hillary Hinton. Trump called Candace to get her to stop talking about Macron's wife's penis because that was holding up the Russia-Ukraine.
Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah,
is that true?
Should have done that.
We should have done that.
I mean, Candace dropped a video about it.
Oh well, we definitely should have done that. What are we doing all this real news for? We could have done that.
I mean, yeah. I had an open slot too.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we could do it just while I'm doing my segment. Pull it from X. It was up there. I saw it this morning.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. We'll see how we are in time. Oh, George, by the way, I love you guys. I love my grandpa too. I still remember the day when he looked me right in the eyes and said, "You've been drinking." Thank you. Oh, George. Hey, guys, nothing to share, so I decided to just return to being a shameless slut for attention. Nothing like the good old days. Thank you, oh, George. Appreciate that. Did I miss one from you, oh, George? I don't know if I missed one. If I did, I will find it and put it back up. I'll take a look. Nope. Nope, I don't think so. All right. We will move right on along. All right, folks. So I wanted to do these two back to back because we just did a segment about the American people being made to celebrate and glorify Alligator Alcatraz. And so I thought we should do this segment now as kind of a contrast to that. Trump moves to toughen U.S. policy on Cuba. That's right. President Donald Trump has instructed his top cabinet officers to review U.S. policy toward Cuba, ordering them to examine current sanctions and come up with ways to toughen them within 30 days. In a memo Monday, Trump said the review should focus on Cuba's treatment of dissidents. Oh, ha, 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 ha. Oh, you mean they should respect dissidents like you guys do. Its policies directed at dissidents and restricting financial transactions that, quote, disproportionately benefit the Cuban government, military, intelligence, or security agencies at the expense of the Cuban people, which is hilarious given what we're about to learn.
Hang on. You just passed a bill that does $1 trillion in cuts to nutrition assistance and Medicaid in order to give tax cuts to billionaires. And you literally had the fucking balls to issue that kind of a directive about another country.
Yep. Indeed. In one potential significant change, the U.S. said the order, pardon me, said the U.S. should look for ways to shut down all tourism to the island and to restrict educational tours to groups that are organized and run only by American citizens. The move is not a surprise, given that Trump has previously said he plans to rescind the easing of sanctions and other penalties in Cuba that were instituted during the terms of Democratic presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden. In the days before leaving office, Biden had moved to lift the U.S. designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, which is something that Trump surprisingly did not undo. They are currently not listed as a state sponsor of terrorism. I would expect Trump would have just undid that on day one. He actually has not. But he's still cracking down on them despite that. In Cuba, Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez responded swiftly to the document. The presidential memorandum versus Cuba released today by the U.S. government strengthens the aggression and economic blockade that punishes the whole Cuban people and is the main obstacle to our development, he wrote on X. It's a criminal behavior that violates the human rights of an entire nation. The Trump administration also has made Cuba one of 7 countries facing heightened restrictions on visitors and revoked temporary legal protections for about 300,000 Cubans, which had protected them from deportation, which is amazing that he's lecturing Cuba to be kinder to their dissidents because almost all of the 300,000 Cubans who came here were Cuban dissidents who were fleeing persecution. So you think they would welcome them. I mean, Republicans have always loved Cuban Americans because they come here, they're radical anti-communists, and they vote Republican.
I would imagine it's to destabilize Cuba.
Yep, that's
sending
probably
300,000 people there at the same time that they're imposing economic sanctions.
Exactly. Maybe try and get one of those revolutions going. The administration also has announced visa restrictions on Cuban and foreign government officials involved in Cuba's medical missions, which Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called forced labor. So their medical missions are forced labor. What did you call Vietnam War? Did you call that forced labor, where you grab 18-year-olds off the street and send them to the front lines of a war we had no business fighting to be killed? Is that forced labor? What about the American military, where we send people into war zones to die for no reason? Is that not forced labor? In an interview with the Associated Press this month, Cuban Deputy Foreign Minister Carlos Fernandez de Casio accused the United States of trying to discredit the medical missions and criticize reversal of policy welcoming Cubans to the U.S. Rubio, whose family left Cuba in the 50s before the Communist Revolution, that's right, Little Marco's family did not flee Castro, they fled Batista. Before the Communist Revolution that brought Fidel Castro to power, has long been a proponent of sanctions, on the communist island. So I want to show you a little report on what these medical missions are. Because Cuba actually sends their doctors around the world to help sick people in areas of needs, as opposed to us, who we send gunmen around the world to go and kill people and occupy countries and overthrow governments and cause violence and death and starvation, displacement and chaos. They actually send doctors around the world in what Rubio calls forced labor. So let's take a look at this report.
Visa restrictions, U.S. State Secretary Marco Rubio said that the Cuban government profits from forced labor, exporting workers, including doctors, to the detriment of the Cuban people. Cuban authorities rejected the accusations, calling the decision groundless. Since 1963, more than 600,000 health workers have been part of Cuban medical brigades that have assisted patients in 165 countries. Their missions have included emergency assistance to treat Ebola in Africa, cholera in Haiti, other diseases across Latin America, and more recently COVID-19 patients in countries like Italy. In a recent television appearance, Cuban doctors who have participated in overseas missions rejected the U.S. allegations, insisting that their humanitarian service is done out of compassion for sick people who need their help.
None of the Cuban health workers have been a slave. We go abroad on our own willingness and have all guarantees for our families back home. We doctors go to assist people with humanism and give them not what we have left, but part of all we have.
Cuban health professionals told CGTN about their commitment to help other nations, such as ophthalmologist Agustin Perez, who has participated in several overseas missions.
It's a tradition in Cuban medicine, all this about internationalist services. We are all very willing to offer other nations our medical support and assistance.
Dr. Margarita Salabarria is a gynecologist at Havana Maternity Hospital. She also has joined several medical missions in Latin America.
I went to the medical mission in Bolivia on my own decision. No one forced me to go. It was my personal and professional desire to go there. While I was there, my family in Cuba received my full salary, and I kept my job position here upon my return.
Dr. Michelle Cabrera, director of the Central Medical Collaboration Unit, which dispatches the medical brigades, says Cuba's medical missions abroad are free of charge for poor countries. He says the revenues from contracts with other countries help maintain and improve the Cuban public health system. Cuban authorities said that over 22,000 Cuban health professionals assigned to 54 medical brigades are currently assisting people in need in several countries around the world. The new U.S. restrictions will not only affect the Cuban health system, but will undermine health care for untold numbers of people around the world. Luis Chirino, CGTN, Havana.
Quite the amazing report. So just a little more about Cuba's...
We the baddies?
Yes, yes, exactly. Appropriate drop there. Just a little more on Cuba's healthcare system, because, you know, it's not like they're sending, you know, a bunch of schmucks around. According to the 2023 Global Health Security Index, Cuba's healthcare system ranks 27th globally. This is higher than many developed countries, including, look at that, the United States, which is 36th, and the United Kingdom, which is 30th. Cuba's healthcare system is renowned for its universal coverage, preventative care, and low infant mortality rates. It also boasts a high number of doctors per capita, which is significantly above the global average. That's part of why they dispatch their doctors. They have a surplus of doctors there. So it's ranked 39th in the world by the World Health Organization. Life expectancy of 79 years, which is higher than the global average of 73. Its infant mortality rate is 4.3 per 1,000 live births, which is significantly lower than the global average of 39 per 1,000 live births. It has a physician-to-population ratio of 6.7 per 1,000 people, which is much higher, almost triple that of the global average. So for that reason, they send doctors around the world to help people who are sick in disease-plagued areas, Ebola, cholera, places where there are public health crises. Cuba dispatches doctors. They don't send armies in to kill people. They send doctors in to cure people. And that's what we are trying to shut down now. I mean, it's just so disgusting. But I do want to end on a somewhat... Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, if there has ever been a shooting yourself in the dick policy, it has been the sanctions against Cuba. Because frankly, let's be real. If we had just maintained an open trade relationship with Cuba, certainly at the end of the Cold War, there's absolutely, maybe you have military considerations, no more military considerations. If you had in the early 90s just thrown open trade with Cuba, they'd probably be, in terms of their economic system, they'd probably be Scandinavian at most by now. Like, you probably, if you really want to bring down this regime and open it up to trade, that probably would have been the best way to do it. Like, at this point, it's just pride. It's just not being willing to admit that this policy, what is it now, 60 fucking years, 65 years? It's absurd. You want to bring down the Cuban system, open up to the Cuban system. Dump tourists into Cuba. I'm not saying that I want them to bring down that system. I'm just saying this approach is so self-defeating if that's what you actually want. There's no doubt in my mind if in 1990 they had just eliminated all of the sanctions, all of the trade barriers with Cuba, the system of government they have now would no longer exist.
Well, I gave you the medical stats, but if you look at the just standard of living statistics of Castro versus Batista, obviously poverty is way down, literacy is way up. Under Batista, Cuba was essentially a plantation for American corporations, which is what the United States wants all of these South and Central American countries to be. That's why we meddle in their democratic processes to the extent that we do. We give them really no choice. Like, market capitalism down there is going to mean cheap labor for American corporations presided over by a strongman who is essentially a dictator. And that gets us to this last piece of this story, which I thought was good and hopeful. Great report here by Breakthrough News. Go check them out. They do really good work, and they cover a lot of stories that you really can't find anywhere else. As Cuba faces food shortages under a brutal U.S. blockade, Vietnam, also once targeted by U.S. aggression, is stepping up to help. Together, they're strengthening Cuba's rice sovereignty to ensure the household staple remains affordable for the Cuban people. So here's a brief report on this.
Is helping Cuba increase its rice production. Vietnam is helping Cuba increase its rice production. The island has signed an agreement with the Asian country to plant Vietnamese seeds on Cuban land and strengthen the exchange of knowledge and technology. With Vietnam's experience and Cuban labor, both countries seek to boost the Caribbean nation's struggling rice production.
Tôi là chuyên gia về sản xuất lúa gạo của Bộ Nông nghiệp Việt Nam, cử sang đây hỗ trợ doanh nghiệp ở đây để sản xuất lúa gạo.
Cuba imports around 80% of the rice it consumes, which it also offers to the population at highly subsidized prices. This requires a significant outlay of foreign currency for the government amid the shortages and the deep economic crisis the country is experiencing. With these new efforts, Cuban authorities seek to change this reality.
We're working on a project in which 1,000 hectares of land were transferred for use to the country of Vietnam. And it's expecting that this will be negotiated with the Cuban government.
Rice is the main product in the basic food basket of Cubans, but in 2024, Cuba was only able to produce 11% of the national demand. The U.S. blockade, which causes enormous economic impacts and limits the island's ability to do business with other countries, is primarily responsible for this situation. Vietnamese specialists acknowledge that conditions are difficult for meeting expectations, but joint efforts are being made to move forward.
Thế nhưng mà vấn đề là ở đây chúng ta là sản xuất lúa thì các bạn Cuba là thường năng suất thấp bởi vì là không thiếu như vật tư phân bón.
Solamente aquí en transporte, en combustible, falta mucho para utilizar, por ejemplo, cómo tenemos que preparar el suelo, tierra.
South-South cooperation, such as the agreements between Cuba and Vietnam, is a relief for the Cuban people who continue to resist Washington's hostile policies and the conditions of the blockade.
Con la empresa de aquí, de Cuba, para nosotros buscar la forma para resolverlo. Y estamos resolviendo.
So I just thought I should show you that as an example of, countries working together to help each other live. This is the moral of the story. All these people want to do is live. And United States and Western imperialism is what makes it impossible for so many people in so many places to live all around the world, whether it's the Caribbean, Central America, South America, Africa, the Middle East. All these people want to do is live their lives. All they want to do is survive and eat. That's it. So there you have a nice little inspiring story of the Vietnamese helping the Cubans grow their staple crop so that they can survive this economic blockade and what looked to be intensifying sanctions. So yes, are we the baddies? Yes. While this stupid piece of shit country is hawking Alligator Alcatraz, coolies, these people are just helping each other live because they are under attack by the United States and the West. We really are just a menace to the world. We're just a menace to the world. What do these people want from us? What do they want to do? What do they want to take over? They want to eat. They want to develop. They want basic sovereignty. That's it. That's it. We won't let them have it.
Well, when you look at how these countries function, you look at how these countries think, the more you do realize that the entire narrative that Americans have been fed in many ways is an inversion of reality. America, we used to, and I guess a lot of people are propaganda. I still have this vision, but it's harder to believe now. The vision was that American people are good and decent, and capitalism is a system that provides so much surplus that we use that to help the world so that you don't have to choose, right? You can be a rapacious capitalist and you can also be generous and Christian in the best sense of the word. That was never the reality. We were always backing people. We were always telling people how horrible Castro was while supporting Pinochet, while supporting the Perones. These were the people that we backed. These were the people that we shielded from prosecution. We backed the Contras very illegally, while at the same time telling everyone about the horrors of these authoritarian regimes. Now, you could litigate the questions of totalitarianism and authoritarianism in the USSR, in Cuba under Castro, but clearly that was never your exception to those societies, given who you support. That was always a smokescreen. And we continue to do that in the Middle East. We talk about human rights in Iran while selling hundreds of millions of dollars of weapons to Saudi Arabia. That's always been the way that we deflect the population from looking at what we actually support, what we're actually about.
Exactly. Well said. All right. Eric Housseau says the weather is nice here in occupied SoCal. Thank you. Good to hear, Eric Housseau. Thank you very much for that. Kevin G says, if Crocodile Dundee got placed in detention, do you think he could escape the alligators? I'm concerned his skills may be too specific to Crocs. Well, we were talking about this earlier because Russell...
They're much more aggressive.
Yeah, I was telling Russell about, the relative non-danger posed by alligators, and Russell was saying that crocodiles, for example, in Australia, pose a much greater risk.
Oh, yeah, they're very aggressive.
Yeah. So we both learned something today from each other. I'd like to apply for the Steve Irwin gig. If you have a wide stick or board, it appears to be a wide wall if you are in front of them. It's due to their eyes being located on the sides of their heads. Interesting. Huh. That is interesting to know. Killer Hitton says, if I could be any NPC, I'd be the innkeeper at the Tomb of Horrors module. I bet all sorts of spectacular fuckery goes down at that place. Also, I just bought an anacondaattica.net. So, there you go. I like that one, yes. Anaconda Attica. Let's see. Rosebud87 says, alligator. Oh, sorry, I got that one already. Thanks, Rosebud. Appreciate that. Here we go. Rosebud again. AA encroaches on Seminole lands. Natives are upset. Yeah, there's the ecological question. I didn't know that there was a tribal sovereignty question. I know there was an ecological objection to it. I didn't know that angle of it. Maybe we'll cover that next time. We certainly intend to stay on that story. No doubt about that. Let's see. Todd S., thanks for the $10. Alligator Alcatraz is the gift to appease the masses, just like the Colosseum was at the end of the Roman Empire. Bad times indeed. Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. Like that kind of sensationalist propaganda on an issue that they still feel confident is their strongest one could very well be the point of that.
I'm told I'm wrong about the Perones. I'm told we didn't like the Perones. You know, I guess it's the epaulets that threw me. We usually like people with the epaulets and the cap and all that.
Oh, in the chat they told you?
They told me. Yeah, we better cut that because I don't want to read the fucking 25 autistic comments about it when we do the clip.
Let me know where it was. In ancient Rome, it wasn't alligators, it was giant eels. Thank you, Brenda McNamara. Javier, thanks to the $4.99, says the alligators are such fools. Don't they realize once they eat all the illegals, they will come after them too? Yeah, there you go. Brent Yoendo, thanks to the $5.
Once they get the taste for human flesh.
Exactly. Excited to feed some reptiles? Are these the lizard people? Ah, good one. Thank you for that. All right. We will move right on along. Now we got some big, beautiful bill discoveries, developments, if you will.
All right. So once again, you know, it looked like those crazy kids were going to get back together. But in this season, of Oligarchs in Love, Elon has once again attacked his former paramour, Donald J. Trump. Now, I want to be clear. I got the original video here from Michael Tracy, but my interpretation is my own.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Time I was falling in love. Now I'm only falling apart.
You guys are awesome. Honestly, this is like
nothing I can say. A total eclipse of the heart.
So, you know, little interpretation of Elon's feelings about the big guy now that they've split up. So Elon, as you probably know, accused the Donald of being a fan of the playground, but then his stock price dropped, so he tried to walk it back. But, you know, that K got the best of him, I guess. He went on a big tweet storm. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. And they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth.
Go,
and
Elon.
Continues. If this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Well, that would be tomorrow. That would be tomorrow because apparently they passed it in the Senate. Or maybe he's going to fudge it and wait to see if it passes the House. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican Uniparty so that the people actually have a voice. And you know who's going to give people that voice? The notorious union-busting, customer-killing billionaire oligarch who's butthurt about EV credits. That's the guy who's going to give power back to the people. It is obvious with the insane spending of this bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party. Yeah, you tell me that guy's not doing K. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. And he continues. Anyone who campaigned on the promise of reducing spending but continues to vote on the biggest debt ceiling increase in history will see their face on this poster in the primary next year. And it's a poster of Pinocchio that says, liar, voted to increase America's debt by $5 trillion. Wow. They just pretend to be two parties. It's just one uniparty in reality. Oh,
damn.
Oh, really? You don't say. You don't say. Well, welcome to the club, Elon. Welcome to the club. A lot of us figured that out a long time ago. Thought he was a genius. Don't they say he's a genius? So here's somebody here posting, I donated again to Thomas Massey's re-election campaign. Who's next? And Elon Musk quote tweets, me.
So it's on. You're going to have the MAGA pack primarying Massey, and then you're going to have Elon coming in to defend him.
Yes. Well, this is why I keep saying our greatest hope as a nation is the fact that narcissistic psychopaths are not able to, historically speaking, maintain a coalition of mutual interest because they're narcissistic psychopaths. They always end up turning on each other. They just don't have the skill set to be loyal and to maintain affection with another person.
Exactly. Well, this is why I said Elon reminds me he's like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, right? He's the villain of the first two acts, but then because he's such an out-of-control predator, in the third act, he swoops in and saves the day by accident because he eats the other predator. Right?
Yes, without any intention of doing so.
Right, without any intention of saving the day, he just boom, he comes back
by
in.
accident.
Yeah.
So Donald finally struck back on a truth post. Elon Musk knew long before he so strongly endorsed me for president that I was strongly against the EV mandate. It is ridiculous and was always a major part of my campaign. No, it wasn't. I never heard him say that. Was that a major part of his? I'm not going to say he never said it. He says a lot of shit, but it certainly wasn't a major part of his campaign.
Right.
Electric cars are fine, but not everyone should be forced to own one. Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa.
The white South Africans are very ungrateful people.
Yeah, I know there are at least 59 slots there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No more rocket
It's enough for
launches.
Elon and his family.
Yeah, I mean, all the South Africans right now go, Elon, shut the fuck up. Shut up, you bastard. No more rocket launches, satellites, or electric car production, and our country would save a fortune. Perhaps we should have Doge take a good hard look at this. Big money to be saved. So Elon responded to this. I am literally saying cut it all now. Okay. You know, it's funny because I know he's been giving interviews where he says, yeah, we should get rid of the tax cuts. Yeah. Well, why didn't you say that when you were in the fucking government?
Right. Yeah,
standing
exactly,
right next to the president. It's very easy for him to say that now.
Right.
Why didn't you say that then? Why were you running around firing people at random without knowing what the impact was going to be? We haven't had time to cover it, but they've actually been scrambling to hire a lot of those people back because Elon, by his own admission, was just kind of pressing buttons to see what would happen, right? That's quite a way to run a government. Didn't hear you say, hey, this is half of the effort. Half of it has to be to eliminate these tax cuts. Never said that when you were in government. All of a sudden now, when you can't do it, now that's what you want people to think you're for. So Trump, on his way to Alligator Alcatraz, was asked about all this.
I don't know. I think we'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies, Peter. But Elon's very upset that the EV mandate is going to be terminated. And you know what? When you look at it, not everybody wants an electric car. I don't want an electric car. I want to have maybe gasoline, maybe electric. Maybe
I bought one from him.
Maybe someday a hydrogen. If you have a hydrogen car, it has one problem. It blows up, So I'm going to give that one to Peter. I'm going to let Peter test it out.
Diplomatic community.
Just been revoked.
Yep, there goes Elon's diplomatic immunity. He's going to ship him back to South Africa. He's going to send him to Alligator Alcatraz before all this is over. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a dinosaur fight. You've got Trump and his cult versus Elon, many of whose adherents are, also Trump's adherents. But in this case, a lot of them will agree with Elon more. Elon could definitely wind up being the champion of all of the Thomas Massey, Rand Paul kind of dissidents. And he does have all that money. On the other hand, yes, what Trump is saying is true. Elon's fortune, especially now that he has destroyed Tesla as a consumer brand. We've said this many times. I don't believe it's recoverable. I think the only way they could possibly restore Tesla as a consumer brand would be to fire Elon. So his business is really dependent more than ever on government contracts. If Trump were to pull those contracts, it would probably destroy his entire empire. Now, the big question is, elephant in the room or fan of the playground in the room, does Elon really have evidence of Donnie and Jeffy doing bad things? Does he? I would say at this point, with him threatening to primary everybody, if he doesn't climb off that ledge, if Trump doesn't pull his government contracts, there's your answer.
I mean, to me, yes, that could be a factor. But to me, I think you're going to be looking at, when it comes to Elon deciding to primary people, you're going to be looking at a year down the road where I suspect that the effects of this bill are going to be felt and that people are going to be siding with Elon just on a policy level. No blackmail withstanding, before you even get into any of that, just nuts and bolts. I think
I'm just
the
saying
tide will turn.
He could destroy his financial ability to do that. And if he doesn't, I'm sorry, that says something. That's the Donald Trump that we know. It's already suspicious that he hasn't done it.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly could be too. Although Elon, he has plenty in the well to throw at these races if he wants. The big question is, who's going to be playing a stronger hand 1 year from now? I suspect it's going to be Elon Musk. I suspect if they get this bill passed, which I think that they will, I think the effects of this are going to be disastrous to the point where running against this agenda is going to have major legs. And it's fantastic that this is happening. I mean, it's just great that this is happening. Like, it's kind of amazing.
Yep.
And as you said, this is the best we could have hoped for, that these people are too egomaniacal and too dysfunctional to the point where they will turn on each other, and that will be their downfall. Because if Elon is successful in primarying, half a dozen to a dozen people, even if he loses almost all the primaries, he probably won't lose all of them, especially given the state of things in 1 year, if this works out the way it looks like it will.
Right.
He primaries, just to use a round number, 10 Republicans. Well, now you take the incumbency advantage out of 10 districts. If even a few of those are swing districts, now you're looking at the Republican Party on much shakier ground.
And then you have the question, is he actually going to start a competing third party?
Well, yeah, that is a bigger question.
He has the money
right
to do it. Much more so than Ross Perot did. Ross Perot was the last crazy rich guy who tried to do that. And it didn't get very far. Elon has a lot more resources, and we're living in a very different world where I think something like that is more feasible if you have the resources, because he has control of this enormous social media platform. That didn't exist when Ross Perot tried to do that.
Right. And if you have the political will at your back, I think at this moment he probably doesn't, but the election's not this November, it's next November.
Right.
And by this time next year, I think the country is going to be pretty sour on this whole big, beautiful bill package.
They're sour on it now.
They're sour on it now. It's got a 38% favorability rating now, before it has actually done the kind of damage that it's going to do. So 1 year down the road, who comes into the primaries with a stronger hand? It is the anti-Trump coalition. That's what I think. Obviously, we don't know that for sure, but all signs point to that. And it takes a big organizing personality to sort of coalesce all of that sentiment. Elon is nothing if not that. I mean, we don't have kind words for Elon, but that is certainly true of him. He definitely has the clout, the name ID, the stature, and the resources to be a major disruptor on the right, which, again, this is the best we could have hoped for. The best we could have hoped for is that these people will just turn on each other and eat each other, and that the movement will collapse under the weight of its own contradictions, which it obviously is. They can't make an argument. I mean, all these influencers going out there making the argument, it's just absurd. Obviously, what Rand Paul and Thomas Massie are saying about this is absolutely true, and they're not even attacking it from the perspective that I would, which is that this is a gutting of the social safety net. They're saying this is an irresponsible ballooning of the deficit in order to service rich people in the form of unnecessary tax cuts. Unnecessary only because they balloon the deficit in this example. So, yeah, I mean, we can quibble about that, but big picture, they are destroying each other over this. And given the negative consequences of the bill, that's only going to get worse as the months go on, to the point where I would say by next spring, when primary season gets going, the upper hand is going to be with the anti-Trump coalition within the party. That would be the bet I would make.
I would agree. But realistically, the damage that they're going to do to the country on the way down is incalculable. We have not even begun to see what the devastating impacts of these policies are going to be. It's only a few months in, folks. It's only a few months in. This is the calm before the storm, where things are still kind of normal-ish.
Right.
A year
it hasn't
from
happened
now,
yet. They haven't passed it yet. They haven't implemented this stuff yet.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's
but
that's what
even
we're
the
looking at.
impacts of things they have done, like I keep saying, like the tourism.
Oh yeah.
You're seeing it. Look, I can see. I always say, having been a tour guide and having been a carriage driver, it's like Eskimos have, dozens of words for snow because they can see that many varieties.
Right.
If you've been dependent on tourist density for your living for decades, you can see very fine gradations of tourist density. I can see when I walk through Times Square, it's not normal.
Right.
It's not normal for the summer season.
Right. Especially,
It's not. I'm not like elbowing my way through Times Square. There's definitely a missing maybe 25-30%, I would say, light from what it would normally be in the heart of the tour season. And right now, you're not feeling the full impact because people book these vacations in advance. You're really going to see it at Christmas, and you're really going to see it going forward from there. Who's going to want to come here?
Yep.
Like, it's going to take a little time for those impacts to play out. But when you have no tourists want to come here, no academics want to come here, no students want to come here, and no entrepreneurs are going to want to come here. You know who's going to want to come here? Very big corporations that want to exploit cheap labor are going to come here, and that's about it. Those are going to be your jobs that you're going to get from torturing immigrants and throwing them to alligators. You're going to get some nice $15 an hour jobs in some big warehouse that wants to come here because it's, not a global South country, and you got a friendly government. Basically the same reason people used to want to work with Batista, right? You got a fascist government with a demoralized labor force, very weak union protections, and low wages.
Exactly. Dorian Marquise. Benny mistook Fire Island for Alligator Island. Haha, good one. We see you, girl. Chief Sylvester Music. Thank you for that. Landrew, thanks for the $100 from Landrew. Appreciate that as always, Landrew. Says solution: stop sanctioning countries. People will be able to live in their countries in peace. The Florida prison looks like what Israel is building in Gaza. Free Palestine. There we go. I understand. You got censored at the end of that.
Landrew is dead.
But thank you, Landrew, very much. That is very kind of you, my friend. We got 12 more likes to go to get to 666. Can we take care of that promptly, please? And thank you in the chat. We right now are at 2,084 in the YouTube chat. Nice crowd for an after. Oops, sorry, wrong.
I was like, hang on, didn't you say we need 12 more?
Sorry,
almost
my
gave
hand
me
slipped
whiplash there. I was like getting into my
right.
groove, then I had to
exactly.
switch to headbanging.
Fat Not So Fat says, that's the thing that always confused me about tariffs. Half the world is sanctioned by us. Shouldn't we eliminate sanctions so developing economies can buy our stuff to decrease trade deficits? Exactly. Thank you, Fat Not So Fat. Appreciate that very much. Eric Rousseau says, can't wait for Survivor Alligator Alcatraz. Don't get voted off or get deported to Seacots. There you go.
I mean, it's a joke, but it's not a joke. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, these motherfuckers are so sick, they could do a reality show.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if anyone would pitch, yeah, it'll be like Cops, but with alligators. It would be these guys.
Oh, of course. Yep. Sir Bikes a Lot says, I'm a long-haul trucker, been by south of the border a few months ago. It's still around, but falling down. Signs begun to fade since 2020. Interesting. Interesting. Like everything else, right? All right, let's move right on along to the bill itself. The bill itself, with some breaking developments, because apparently it has passed the Senate.
Yeah, okay, so I had to throw this together, so it's a little out of order. So Trump's mega bill squeaks through the Senate, but House can still reject final version. Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They'll change some things to satisfy some people. That's my opinion. The Senate on Tuesday passed President Donald Trump's mega bill after days of negotiations and a marathon amendment session that at times appeared to imperil the domestic policy package. The final vote was 51-50, with Vice President J.D. Vance casting a final tie-breaking vote. Republican Senators Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and Susan Collins of Maine all broke with their party and voted against the massive spending bill, so they got Murkowski. Senate Majority Leader John Thune's victory in the upper chamber may be short-lived, however, as the mega bill now goes to the House, where it faces an uncertain future amid firm GOP holdouts. The House, which just squeaked out its version of the bill, must accept the Senate's substantial changes to the package, which is a daunting task, especially as some GOP lawmakers have expressed continued concerns over the bill's impact on the deficit. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office projects the bill will add at least $3 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade. So this was Mark Kelly. They did an all-night amendment-a-thon, much to the chagrin of Senator Young Frankenstein, as we'll see later. But this was Mark Kelly at the break of dawn.
Sun has just come up and still here at the U.S. Capitol. Been about 20 hours. Still voting on amendments on a bill they don't even have the text for, and my Republican colleagues in there, they don't have the votes because this bill is that bad. After 20 hours, can't even vote on it because it kicks 17 million people off of Medicaid, their only health insurance. It cuts food benefits for people who are hungry. It adds $3.3 trillion to the debt, all to give a big tax cut to the richest Americans. That's what they're trying to do. But they can't do it, not yet, and we're fighting to stick up for the American people here to make sure that they don't get delivered this horrible piece of legislation.
Now, we don't know if it's true. The rumor is that J.D. Vance now actually has to sleep with Lisa Murkowski. That's something apparently Mark Kelly did not account for. So Tom Tillis, after Donald Trump threatened to primary him, decided not to run for re-election, so he is a free man, and he speaks like one now.
So what do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there anymore, guys? In the White House Amateurs advising the president are not telling him that the effect of this bill is to break a promise. And you know the last time I saw a promise broken around health care, with respect to my friends on the other side of the aisle, it's when somebody said, if you like your health care, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. We found out that wasn't true. That made me the second Republican Speaker of the House since the Civil War, ladies and gentlemen, because we betrayed the promise to the American people. 2 years later, 3 years later, it actually made me a U.S. Senator, because in 2010, it had just been proposed. And just anticipation of what was going to happen was enough to have a sea change election that swept Republicans into the majority for the second time in 100 years. Now, Republicans are about to make a mistake on health care and betraying a promise. It is inescapable that this bill in its current form will betray the very promise that Donald J. Trump made in the Oval Office or in the cabinet room when I was there with finance, where he said we can go after waste, fraud, and abuse on any programs. Now, those amateurs that are advising him, not Dr. Oz, I'm talking about White House healthcare experts.
Not Dr. Oz, I mean amateurs.
Dr. Oz knows his crudité.
Exactly.
And we got an old saying in North Carolina, man who knows his crudité knows his bills.
By amateurs, I mean no offense or disrespect to Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz knows what he's doing.
That those instructions that were to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse all of a sudden eliminates a government program that's called the provider tax. We have morphed a legal construct that admittedly has been abused and should be eliminated into waste, fraud, and abuse. Money laundering. Read the code. Look at how long it's been there.
All right. So
he's right.
Normally, I'm not very sympathetic to if only the great leader knew he would do something about this defense. But after watching Donald Trump very insistently, as you very persuasively argued, insist that the MS-13 in the photos of Abrego Garcia were not photoshopped, maybe. Like after watching him insist after Stephen Miller, following Stephen Miller's lead, that the Supreme Court had ruled in their favor in that case, something he seemed to completely believe in subsequent interviews, that the Supreme Court had ruled 9-0 in their favor. Maybe, he's such a lazy slob. Like he might, I'm sure they're all telling him this protects Medicare and only cuts waste, fraud, and abuse. You think Donald Trump is going to be laying there in the Lincoln bedroom with a little book light reading this fucking bill? Like, you think he knows anything about it beyond what they tell him about it or beyond what he sees on Fox News? It doesn't go outside of that media ecosystem as far as we can tell.
No, I mean, according to a lot of credible reporting, Fox News coverage of the Israeli airstrikes is what encouraged Donald Trump to join the campaign, right? To send in the U.S. bombers. Like, he's very susceptible to flattery and flattering media coverage and just outright lies and propaganda. Could very well be, but if that is the case, it could very well
be he does not understand what the bill actually does. It's possible.
Certainly
possible. It's possible.
Certainly possible. Not
with
an excuse,
another president,
obviously.
I would say that's just cult of personality shit.
Right.
With this one, maybe he might literally not know, which is not really saying much for him as it is.
Exactly. I mean, either way, the buck stops with him, and whoever is telling him this is, as Tom Tillis said there, he's exactly right, 100% right. Not serving him well. Not serving him well. The working poor who get thrown off of Medicaid, who tend to vote Republican in these, mostly white swing state kind of counties and areas, that is going to come back to bite the Republicans just like it bit the Democrats. It was a good example that he invoked of the ACA.
He's talking about Obamacare.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. He said you could keep your doctor.
Right.
That turned out to be completely untrue, and there was a lot of backlash over that. People are very attached to their doctors. They develop a trust with that doctor,
Right.
That's not a joke to just tell people that and then have them find out it's not true. So here, Ron Smith says, Carolyn Levitt blatantly lies again. Of course, she claims this does not cut Medicaid. And he says the BBB cuts Medicaid. These people are professional liars. It's worth reading through because we're going to take a look at a couple of the responses to that. But here is Washington's favorite sugar baby since the Washington Madam.
Bill strengthens Medicaid. It will protect those benefits that hardworking Americans need, and that's why the president wants this bill to pass. The senator was wrong. The president put out a Truth Social post addressing it, and then the senator announced he's no longer running for office anymore. So I think that case has been closed, and the White House is continuing to focus on getting this legislation to the president's desk for his signature.
Goes home to a 60-year-old man.
Yep.
She calls daddy, reputedly. Linda RN says, you're the liar. It protects Americans by not allowing illegal aliens to bleed Medicaid dry. Yeah, cuts Medicaid for illegal aliens and the able-bodied over 26. Which of those two do you have a problem with? Sensing a theme here. Myla Joy. Republican senators who voted against the amendment to remove illegals from Medicaid. Primary challenges need to be done for Paul, Collins, and Murkowski. Well, this was, I guess, before Murkowski flipped, and Susan Collins on the list there. And Cat Turd is, some say, the greatest political mind of his generation. For the next 18 months, Tom Tillis will vote no on anything Trump wants. That's exactly who he is. He's never cared about the people of North Carolina. Not like the guy who's going to throw over 100,000 of them off their health care. He's the one who cares about them. It's all about him and his fragile ego. So you see, everything, they need the immigrants. They need the immigrants because that's who they're going to deflect to whenever they want to push something unpopular through. Yep. It's about illegals, and then they can get the chuds, the insecure, broken-brained, mostly men, but we're assuming times are changing, but we're assuming Linda's still a woman's name. They're going to jump in there to feel, because they feel no sense of strength, of agency, of self-worth. That's what this language is designed to appeal to. People who are deeply insecure, who have no pride in themselves, who can only find strength or a sense of strength by latching onto something that they perceive as a movement that's signaling strength. Yeah, I'm strong. I hate immigrants too.
Right.
Exactly. With that. Now here, Profile Encourage. Senator Profile Encourage Hawley. This guy, this guy to me is a bigger piece of shit than the people who are just full-throatedly endorsing this bill. He keeps going on about how bad it is, and then he keeps voting.
Keeps voting yes. Yeah.
It's really amazing.
We can't be cutting health care for working people and for poor people in order to constantly give special tax treatment to corporations and other entities. And we've delayed that in this bill. But it will, unless we take further changes or take further steps, it will happen in future years. And I'm opposed to this. If we're going to be a working class party, we've got to protect working people. And I just
so you voted no?
Stuff in here, I think is bad. And I think we've delayed the worst of it. And in the short term, for my state, it's going to be fine. But on a going forward basis, we cannot go on like this. I think the party has a lot of thinking to do.
These people all read, like Benny Johnson, Josh Hawley, they all read as sociopaths. They all read like serial killers. Like, seemed normal, but there was something off about him. There's something just a little, like, look at him. Like, there's something a little like animated wax figure about these people. Like, there's some vital spark of the human soul that just is not there.
Yeah, like the city clerk of Halloween Town in Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah.
Okay, so we don't know, as I said, the fact that the bill passed was just breaking right before we went on. We don't know what they gave to Murkowski. Originally, they gave her a laundry list of breaks and an exception for Alaska on the Medicaid cuts and $50,000 for whale captains. Who knew there were still enough whale captains working out of Alaska for that to be a sweetener? But the Senate parliamentarians struck that down because they have to pass this through reconciliation. So we don't know what they offered her to get her to flip, but Michael Tracy had posted about this previously. There's nothing more big and beautiful than middle of the night horse trading with Lisa Murkowski to give Alaska special carve-outs for no particular reason. We know that there was a lengthy meeting between Thune and Murkowski, but we don't know what the details were yet, obviously. So here's Glenn explaining how a lot of this money is a giveaway from the Pentagon to defense contractors like Palantir at the expense of the working class. It's worth watching this whole segment. We'll just watch a little bit of it.
$11.8 million more uninsured from the Senate bill, according to the CBO. So this is the scheme that's happening, and it's been happening for forever. There are certain programs, very limited programs, that are designed to help the middle class and the working class. That's why the middle class and the working class are doing so poorly. And the main promise of the Trump administration, the MAGA movement, the Republican Party, has been, remember, we're going to stand for the forgotten person, the working class people. And huge numbers of them who voted for Trump on that basis are actually on Medicare. They use Medicare. They can't afford health insurance. They can't afford, if their families get sick, some accident happens, they use Medicare. And according to the CBO, just from yesterday, 11.8 million more uninsured people, if that Senate bill passes, the big, beautiful bill will become uninsured. So huge numbers of billions and billions and billions of dollars to Palantir, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, etc. The working class people smashed. No more Medicare rather.
Yep. It's a big club, folks, and you ain't in it. So some of the impacts of this bill will be it blows up the debt by $4 trillion. Remember that debt they care so much about? We have to scale back because of this debt. Largest healthcare cuts in history. So we're hearing different numbers. It looks like the CBO figure is 11.8. I'm not sure. Mark Kelly also said 17 million. I'm not sure where that figure is coming from. 11.8 is pretty bad in and of itself, but this says 17 million Americans would lose health care. 300 rural hospitals could close. 500 nursing homes could close. Premiums skyrocket for everyone. Largest cut to nutrition assistance in history. Decimates clean energy in America. Kills hundreds of thousands of jobs. Largest transfer of wealth from poor to rich in history. Now, you know what's really sad? When I redid this slideshow, I had to take out the last slide. You know what the last slide was? It was the phone number to call the Senate to pressure them not to pass the bill.
But that is obsolete.
Yep. That's what I thought was going to happen. In the end, there is a cult of personality around Donald Trump. And if you do want to stand up to him, they're going to come at you. They've made it very clear. They're going to get their cult after you. They're going to get their pod bros to attack you. You're going to be pilloried on X and other social media platforms. They're going to make life very hard for you. And, most people like Tom Tillis, they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. Most of these fucking people are rich. Like, they don't need to stay in office.
Right.
They can retire quite comfortably. They have a nice pension. So Tillis is like, fuck it, what do I want to take that heat for? And if you look at his floor speech, probably part of his incentive was, at least I can be honest, for a few months if I'm not running for re-election. The Masseys, the Rand Pauls, that's a very rare breed. In both cases, they probably own those seats for as long as they want them, no matter what Trump throws at them. They are probably Trump proof. I think, if anything, particularly with Massey, Trump will hurt himself more attacking Massey than he's going to hurt Massey. He's a very, very beloved figure with a very particularly impassioned part of Trump's own base. He should really think better of that politically. But yeah, man, I mean, most of them, they don't want to incur the wrath of the big guy, at least thus far. We'll see what happens as this moves to the House. Musk just went on his tweet storm right before this vote. The House is going to have more time to consider whether they want to deal with him sinking money into a primary. But you know what? They could also feel like Elon says a lot of things. Trump is actually in office, actually now, and we know he's going to primary us if we cross him. This is why I've been saying all along, yeah, man, they might change some things. There will be some changes, sure. But overall, the shape of this, I believe it's going to pass pretty much as what it is.
Yeah, look, ultimately, you're making it very hard for swing state and swing district Republicans to survive the midterms if you pass this, right? Like, that's just a fact, right? So if you're Tom Tillis and you're up for re-election in North Carolina, which is not a deep red state, it's a swing state that leans red, you're making it very tough on him as it is. If he were a good soldier and he supported the bill, he'd have a tough re-election fight, right? If he's honest and he says, look, this is a horrible idea, he still has a brutally difficult re-election fight because the party wholesale is going to pay a price for this in the midterms, assuming we have free and fair midterms, which is a long ways away. But, if you burn Trump, now you have the MAGA base against you. Now in a tough midterm in a swing state, you got almost no shot because your turnout's going to be shit. So it's a lose-lose. And this is to the point you were making on Sunday. Like, look, ultimately, we know this bill is poison for anyone with a tough race in 2026 with an R next to their name. It's poison. It's going to drag them down. At that point, they have to ask themselves, okay, what are we really doing here? This is our one chance to do this. This is our one chance to just, put this country on, Reaganism on steroids. This is really a transfer from the Reagan era into something even more dystopian. Like, are we going to do it or not? Yeah, the midterms are going to be a bitch, but I think that's a price they're willing to pay because this is what it's all about to these people. And the people funding these people.
And the Democrats are owned by the same people, so they're not going to roll any of this back anyway. So this is our big chance. You get the Democrats in, they'll have the rotating villain, they'll have their mansion or their cinema. Oh gosh, we would have done it. We would have rolled it back.
Right. You may get a thing or two back just so they could say they did something, but not really. Not really. Just like the ACA was really not a revocation of the privatization of healthcare, was really not a reversal of that. It put a few Band-Aids on a few wounds here and there, but ultimately it just continued this slide. And so, yeah, I think they figure, you know what, if that's a price we have to pay, that's a price we have to pay. I think people who are taking these yes votes in swing states and swing districts know that this could very well cost them their job. Hey, you know what? As long as we're good soldiers and we do the donors' bidding, that's what the revolving door is there for. When we get voted out because the policies are unpopular, we go and work for the people who paid us to implement the policies. I think that is their thinking. I don't think they're going to be politically prudent about this at all. Even before you get into conversations about Elon and primaries and things like that, this is going to be a disaster for them politically. You can't, but as Tom Tillis, this is as simple as it gets. You can't throw 17 million people off their health care and not pay a price for it at the ballot box. You just can't. That does not happen. If Obama paid the price for the ACA, this is going to be that and more and more.
What we need is a trans athlete to kill a girl in a volleyball match.
Exactly.
Who's with me? Who's with me?
Yeah, exactly. That's all they can hope for. And even with that shit, like, you can't culture war your way out of that. You throw people off healthcare, that trumps everything. That trumps everything. All right. Let's see here. Race car, thanks for the $20, says, God bless your microphones, God bless your internet connection, and God bless due dissidents. Hope I didn't miss any blessings. All right.
Well,
and God bless God. There you go. Thank you. for that very much. Appreciate it. John M. in Minnesota said last October, the UN General Assembly, once again, every year since 92, voted for resolution to lift U.S. economic embargo. The vote 187-2. Yep, U.S. and the Israel the no vote. You're talking about the blockade of Cuba, the embargo. Yes, yep. The whole world doesn't want that. We're the only ones who do. Kevin G says Albert Brooks is funny, but don't read his wife's Twitter. Extremely genocidal. Who's he married to? I don't even know. I mean, I love Albert Brooks's comedy. I did never paid attention to any of his personal life. Obviously, he usually stays out of public mind. Who is his wife? I'll have to look that up. Thank you for that. Although maybe I shouldn't, because I do like Albert Brooks. Space Karen versus President Camacho. One large popcorn, please. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Professor Brown. No, appreciate that. Jay Pari says if these sick fucks were around in the 40s, they'd be peddling Birkenau beer huggies. Yes, good one. Thank you for that very much. Okay, all right. Let's take a quick game break here for a word from 1775 Coffee. So if you still haven't tried 1775 Coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. Only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political views. And, of course, a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. So go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. So start your day with a coffee that actually backs what you believe. That's 1775coffee.com/studio. Okay, all right. Oops, there we go. Perfect. All right, let's move right on along here. So this is the latest in the feud between the Trump administration and my alma mater, Harvard University. Harvard violated students' civil rights, the Trump administration finds. This is the exclusive by the Wall Street Journal. They have the reporting on this. The Trump administration informed Harvard University that its investigation found it had violated federal civil rights law over its treatment of Jewish and Israeli students, putting the federal funding of the nation's oldest university further at risk. The investigation is the latest in the battle between the White House and Harvard. The Trump administration has sought to make the wealthiest U.S. university Exhibit A in its fight against liberal institutions it says didn't take anti-Semitism and DEI concerns seriously. Now, the phrasing of that is funny because that would make you feel like they're pro-DEI and against anti-Semitism. No, they're against DEI except when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism, right? They apply that same logic when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism. All of a sudden, they're very, very woke, as you'll see. In a letter sent to Harvard President Alan Garber on Monday and viewed by the Wall Street Journal, attorneys for the administration said the investigation found that Harvard knew Jewish and Israeli students felt threatened on its campus and acted with deliberate indifference. So in other words, they're guilty of having ignored a mostly, not entirely, I would argue, made up problem. The only reason I say mostly is because, a lot of these people have been brainwashed into feeling under siege, right? That's very much part of the Israeli experience. In Hebrew school, you learn a lot of that, right? But in terms of actual evidence of any of these offenses taking place, as we'll see, very, very non-existent.
Where are all of these anti-woke people? Isn't this exactly what they argued against? The idea that your feelings somehow have to be deferred to in the absence of any real evidence, that how you feel about something is to be treated as a meaningful fact in evaluating offense.
The conservative movement spent the last 10 years mocking people who felt
safe space
that they were being discriminated against. Oh, you want a safe space? Well, that's not our job to provide you a safe space. Well, now here, they're being told they're in violation of law for not doing just that, for not acting upon the feelings of a group of people. Failure to institute adequate changes immediately will result in the loss of all federal financial resources and continue to affect Harvard's relationship with the federal government, the letter states. Harvard may, of course, continue to operate free of federal privileges, and perhaps such an opportunity will spur a commitment to excellence that will help Harvard thrive once again. A Harvard spokesman said the school has taken substantive steps to address anti-Semitism in its community.
How about Islamophobia?
Yeah, well,
probably have to kick out most of your Israeli students and a good portion of your Jewish students.
Right, exactly. The school has, quote, strengthened policies, disciplined those who violate them, encouraged civil discourse, and promoted open, respectful dialogue, the spokesman said. Harvard is far from indifferent on this issue and strongly disagrees with the government's findings. So here is Carolyn Levitt outlining the case against Harvard, justifying this letter, which informed them they were in violation of civil rights law.
That was sent to Harvard this morning, as you know. The negotiations are taking place behind closed doors, so I won't comment on that. But what I will share with all of you, for those who haven't seen it, is the context of this letter, because I think it's very important. And this comes from the Department of Health and Human Services, which concluded after a thorough investigation that Harvard University is...
Comes from where? The Department of Health and Human Services. I'll show you a little bit more on that later. The Department of Health and Human Services, folks.
A violent violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin. And if you read some of the content of the investigation and what they found, the majority of Jewish students reportedly experienced negative bias or discrimination on their campus, while a quarter of Jewish students at Harvard felt physically unsafe. Jewish and Israeli students were assaulted and spit on. They hid their kippahs for fear of being harassed and concealed their Jewish identity from classmates for fear of ostracization. Images were widely circulated amongst the Harvard community that trafficked in obvious anti-Semitic tropes, including one that showed a $sign inside of a Star of David, and the campus was vandalized with anti-Semitic stickers, including one that showed the Israeli...
I'm sorry, didn't Donald Trump literally retweet something like that? Like a dollar with the Star of David in it? Didn't he literally share something like that a few years back? I am almost positive.
I'm not sure.
Flag with a swastika. The Harvard campus was racked by demonstrations, as you all know, violent protests that violated the university's rules of conduct. The demonstrations called for genocide and murder, denied Jewish and Israeli students access to campus spaces. These are all facts that Harvard cannot dispute. And
that is all nonsense. Actually, that's all bullshit. Actually, I mean, in terms of people being assaulted, where? Who? Where are the specific cases? Where's the evidence of that having happened? In terms of people drawing a swastika on an Israeli flag, that's a political comment. That's a statement of opinion. You're comparing the actions of one genocidal regime to the current genocidal regime. That's not harassment of a group. That's not a threat against a group. Of course, they're going to categorize the protests as being violent in nature, which, again, show me the documentation of assaults having taken place. Where is it?
That's why the administration has found them in violation of Title VI and has threatened to withhold their federal funding, because if you break federal law, you should not be receiving federal tax dollars. And so I rest my case on Harvard.
You rest your case. That was, like I said, all of that just total nonsense. Oh, wait a minute. Here's open source intel commenting on this here. Let's see what they have to say. The Trump administration has found Harvard in violation of students' civil rights, accusing the university of failing to address campus anti-Semitism. The findings could now trigger federal funding cuts, from the Wall Street Journal. So they put this video under that tweet as evidence of violence against Jewish and or Israeli students. Let's see the evidence. Oh, wow. Is that a mob? Are they beating people up? What are they doing? They're crazy. Oh no, they're putting. Oh no, they're putting sleeping bags down so they can occupy the quad. That's what it is. They're running onto the lawn with sleeping bags and backpacks so they can set up camp there. This is evidence of violence. Where's the violence? Look, like it's so Orwellian, it's insane. Again, how many thousands of hours of these protests have been captured on video? Just from grassroots people going and filming with their phones, much less media that has swarmed upon these campuses. Where is the evidence of any violence having taken place? Where are the people at Harvard making specific claims about violent actions that were done against them, and where is the evidence for it? Like, it is just incredible. You think this is evidence of harassment? It's a bunch of kids running onto a field putting sleeping bags down. What is it, because they're moving really fast? You trust that maybe people won't paying attention to what they're looking to what they're looking at? Well, you think people are going to mistake this for people running around beating people up? It's people putting sleeping bags down. You can see it clear as day.
Well, you know, I
What
can find
evidence
you
is this
like
of anything?
5 videos right now of Zionists screaming anti-Islamic chants and death
Right.
threats at protesters. I
Right.
can find you 5 of those videos like that.
In a minute. What evidence is this of anything? Like, why would you put this on a tweet? Like, why? I don't understand.
By the way.
Oh yeah, that's the money thing. Ah, yes. That's the Star of David. It was an anti-Hillary ad. Oh, good memory. There you go. You found it. Yeah, that's what it was. See, I forgot about that. But yes, that jogs the mind. But this is just it's just insane. It's like intended to drive you crazy. The guy is citing as evidence of violence people running onto a quad, throwing down sleeping bags so they can demonstrate on the lawn. So Bill Ackman tweets this out: Joint Task Force letter to Harvard University concerning notice of violation from, yes, HHS.gov, the good old Department of Health and Human Services. Oh, don't worry. He's just gonna give you measles. He's not gonna mess with Israel. You know? That's it. You shake it off. Be a man. Your 3-year-old. Be a man. Gen X, this letter to Harvard is okay. So Gen X girl did a great job here, and I messaged Gen X girl.
There has been an increase in autism that exactly correlates to the decrease in circumcisions. So we are bringing back universal circumcision for American males starting December 1st.
Exactly, yes. So I want to give a shout out to Gen X girl here because she found this. She actually went to great lengths to find this video. So this letter to Harvard is laughable. Harmeet Dillon has turned DOJ's Civil Rights Office into Israel's PR shop, with Leo Terrell praising Israel 24/7. Out of 19 million students, there are only 144 cases of anti-Semitism filed under Title VI. That's 0.00, you get it, 7% of all students. So I messaged Gen X girl because I wanted to know exactly what I was looking at here to make sure that it was current. And she wrote back to me very, very quickly with sourcing and everything. So once again, shout out to Gen X girl. Follow her on X. Great handle for this stuff. She said, yes, it's from the 8th House Anti-Semitism hearing held on May 7th, 2025. She said she had to call his office, meaning Bobby Scott's office, I assume, because that's the congressman who's speaking here, to get them to publish it so I could cite it. So she actually contacted the government to publish this so she could cite this, because this is current. This is not like from 3 years ago talking about stats on anti-Semitism. These are current stats on anti-Semitic discrimination on college campuses. So let's take a look at this video.
Be discriminated against because of who they are. No one should be discriminated against because of who they are or how they worship. And all students have the right to learn in a safe environment free from discrimination in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Unfortunately, instead of properly enforcing Title VI, this committee is holding the 8th hearing describing the problem and complaining about anti-Semitism on college campuses instead of taking any meaningful action to actually solve the problem. Curiously, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have not had any hearings addressing other forms of discrimination and hate, such as racism, Title IX gender violations, Islamophobia, homophobia, or the challenges of meeting the needs of students with disabilities. And this is particularly concerning since we know from reports from the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights that on January 11th of last year, there were 12,000 open cases alleging discrimination and violation of Title VI. 12,000. And of those 12,000 cases, only 144 could be Title VI violations involving anti-Semitism. And we know the solution of this problem is better enforcement of Title VI. So instead of holding another problem, another hearing, talking about the problem, which complains about the problem, we ought to be holding a hearing on what is going on in the Office of Civil Rights, OCR, the Department of Education.
Okay, so once again,
she made that video.
Yeah, she put that together. So great job by Gen X girl doing that, because that's of course a hugely relevant and current stat. I just wanted to make sure it was current, so we weren't citing stuff from pre-October 7th, pre-protest, whatever. No, that's from this year. From May of this year, 19 million students, 12,000 discrimination cases. Of those 12,000 discrimination cases, 144 were complaints of anti-Semitism. 1% of discrimination cases were of anti-Semitism. And yet you have the Trump administration accusing Harvard of violating civil rights law for what? Not taking these claims seriously? Even if you took every claim at face value, it's 1% of all claims. And as we know, without a doubt, most of these claims are nonsense. A student feeling insecure because there's a campus protest, that is not a legitimate case of anti-Semitism.
Right.
Anti-Semitism, a legitimate case is you
wokeness
paint a
in a
swastika
nutshell.
on someone's dorm. That is the legitimate case. Show me the evidence. Show me where that's happened. All these people talk about, they've been assaulted, they've been spit on, they've had their dorm rooms vandalized. We are on Twitter constantly. And don't tell me it's because I'm in an echo chamber, in a pro-Palestine echo chamber. I am pro-Palestine. I follow a lot of pro-Palestine accounts. I don't follow any of the Zionist maniacs, and yet I'm inundated with their content. Anyway, Eli, David, Ayal, Jacoby, whatever the fuck his name is. You got that guy Vivid, the guy the Zionist who lives in India. Those are huge Zionist accounts. They're everywhere. I see their stuff all the time. All the time. And I have not seen a shred of evidence produced to substantiate any of these claims about Harvard or any other campus for that matter. Yet they're in violation of civil rights law. It's fucking laughable. And it is made infinitely laughable by the fact that these claims are being made by people who spent the last decade mocking every other group for making these claims.
Yep. And, I mean, on the other side of it, this is part of what a lot of us argued to the woke people. Man, once you normalize these kinds of claims, they're going to use this against you. The whole woke movement systematically lowered the standard of evidence and made the argument that how you feel is an acceptable measure of what kinds of penalties other people should face for making you feel that way as something that's even an intelligible concept in a proceeding on a university campus. Like, who introduced that into the bloodstream of the body politic? It was the wokies. What we saw very quickly after October 7th is that the anti-woke people, they love this idea, just as long as you direct it at groups that they don't like and use it to create safe spaces for groups that they do.
Right. Exactly. And that is exactly what has happened here. Now, the ultimate irony of this, when it comes to me personally, is I don't even like Harvard. I don't even have a problem with them defunding Harvard. I really don't.
This is like the most Stalinist thing about Keaton. Like, he literally would like these places to house sheep and hay.
Yeah, I would repurpose them for, public housing and, yes, sheep and hay if it came to that, if that was the need of the, depends on the locale, I suppose. But yeah, I don't even like Harvard. I don't even care if they lose their funding. It's just the hypocrisy of this argument is unbelievable. And it shows that really there is no principled civil liberties party in Washington. None.
No.
It's just snakes on one side, snakes on the other. Very, very rare that you have people stand up against this stuff, which is why it's important to defend people like Massey, even though I think Massey's a total lunatic on all these economic issues where he's touting, he thinks we should go more in Elon's direction. You need some people holding the line on these basic civil liberties because both these major parties are a major threat to them. And this is just as laughable as it gets. It's as hypocritical as it gets. Doesn't get worse than that. In violation of civil rights law. Because you're not because you're doing anything, but because you're not doing enough to assuage the hurt feelings of a subset of your student body. Just amazing.
Alligator Alcatraz, here we come.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Hillary Clinton, Hillary Hinton, ICE is partnering with the Department of Genetic Fuckery to bring pterodactyl Treblinka. There you go. Yes, good one. There you go. I like that one. Vito says, interesting concept. We could become the sweatshop cheap labor nation. Cancer sucks, you guys rock. No, that's what we will be.
Well, yeah. I think they got a big investment when Trump went through the Middle East. What was it, Dubai or UAE? One of them was going to, I think
it was Dubai,
put huge money into the U.S. And you think about it, why is that? Well, of course, you got this fascist government that's destroying the NLRB. So you're going to have a country with a relatively educated workforce where you can pay third world style wages and you have third world style lack of labor protections. It's awesome for them.
Of course. Brad Gilbert says, so we're not doing facts over feelings anymore. That's right. Those days are over. That's every 4 years when the Democrats are in office. They don't care about your feelings.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. That's how that works. All right. Let's move right on along.
Okay. Fetterman. We're on Fetterman. All right. So our friend.
Senator... hold on. Before you start this one, hold on, because we're overdue. Now it's free.
There we go. All right. So one person who was not happy about Chuck Schumer insisting that the bill be read, and then the Democrats further trying to delay the bill with various amendments, was Senator Fetterman, who had a beach vacation to get to or some shit. He wants to go home. Let's see what he had to say.
Any clues on the floor about what time this might wrap?
Oh my God! I just want to go home. I've already I've missed our entire trip to the beach. My family's going to be back before we that. So
this job sucks.
And again, I'm going to vote no. There's no drama. The votes are going to go. In fact, the only interesting votes are going to be on the margin.
Shift manager at the Tyson
Collins
chicken plant
or Johnson and those, but the votes are going to go. In fact, the only interesting votes are going to be on the margin, whether that's Collins or Johnson and those. But all the Democrats, we all know how that's going to go. And I don't think it's really helpful to put people here till when some ungodly hour. And again,
thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I don't think I should actually have to put any work into this job. You do know I had a stroke and I'm working with a quarter of my brain, right?
Right.
So I need my nap time. So Fetterman, when he has the availability to actually spend time with his family. So this is from that very damning article about how his staff has fled in horror at a lot of his positions. Moments like these were becoming increasingly difficult for staff to explain, and behind the scenes, things were worse. In March, Fetterman suddenly took an early morning trip to Hartford, Connecticut, without telling his team why, leaving them at a loss for what to tell Giselle when she demanded to know why he was missing one of their kids' birthdays. Doesn't seem like he really cares all that much about the family. According to the reporting in this article, his own wife is horrified. by the person that he's become. And look, man, I don't think it's out of line to suggest he's brain damaged. Like he was never great, but it seems like based on the accounts of people who knew him in this article, his personality has changed, which can happen when you have a major neurological event like that. So this was funny. John Fetterman from the Barbie movie. My job is just beach.
I mean, his argument was, you all know how we're going to vote anyway, so why should we vote at all? Let's just go home.
Yeah. Why do we have to drag this out?
Yeah.
All right. So Mark Kelly was asked about the John Fetterman beach theory of government here.
I don't think it's really helpful. I think if you have an argument to make, do that in the next 5 or 7 or 8 amendments to make that powerful statement. And that barely, I don't understand. I don't think people are going to really be paying
He wants to go home so bad, he put on a shirt.
Yeah.
attention if you're doing 20, 30 or more kinds of amendment. I don't really think there's a lot of dignity in it.
What do you think about that? Does he have a point, or do you disagree with him?
Not a lot of dignity in doing the job that the people of Pennsylvania voted for you to do.
Right.
You are representing your voters. You are not representing yourself. Nobody gives a shit about your beach vacation. It's just amazing, this guy.
I disagree with him. There is always dignity in fighting for the American people, especially folks who are just trying to get by. I've talked to so many people in my state that are fearful of this, who have illnesses, who have adopted children who are on Medicaid. You know, when you adopt a kid through foster care, they're on Medicaid. I met this woman named Kiana Brown who says that what's going on here makes her feel like the Republicans are burning down her house and the kids are still inside. She is fearful that they're going to lose their Medicaid coverage, and one of her kids has special health care needs, and she cannot not afford to buy health insurance for this child. So, I mean, if it takes us till 6 in the morning or all day tomorrow, we should stay here, and if we can, try to make this bill a lot less bad. But at the same time, we should be here fighting for the American people. I don't care if it takes a month if we have to stay straight through. So I disagree with my colleague from Pennsylvania.
I still remember John Itarola arguing that it was fine that this guy literally couldn't form a sentence because lots of people have handicaps.
Right. Lots of people. He said there are people in wheelchairs who serve.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
why not?
Because that's exactly the same thing as being cognitively impaired.
Right.
Zainab Day here. I'm so glad I was let go before this guy was endorsed at brand new Congress. For the record, I warned about him. His ties to AIPAC, him pulling a gun out on a black jogger. I flagged this dude long before he won. Fetterman should stand as a lesson for organizers. Yes, indeed. And really a lesson for blue, no matter who, podcasters like Itarola, like Emma Vigland, who were trying to shame people into supporting this fucking goon. John Fetterman's obsessed devotion to Israel is more important than legislating. Oh, I bet he'd stay there for a week if it was about an arms package for Israel. As a result, most of his staff has quit. Apparently, even his wife is gobsmacked by this. It is time, at least that's the reporting, it is time we do the same with Zionism, and it starts by registering AIPAC as a foreign agent. Now, we had this just breaking right before we went on. This might be part of why they wrapped up the vote. Fetterman broke out of the Senate. It's just, this is some of the craziest footage we've seen.
Dude, he went home. He went home. That's it. We're going to the beach.
that was it.
Can't take this anymore.
It was last seen thumping down the highway towards the beach.
Yes.
In the general direction of the beach. Reportedly, that's part of why Thune finally decided to wrap up the vote.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's pretty crazy. What's the dignity in staying here? I want to go home. Like, it's such a petulant thing to say.
What's the
You wanna
dignity
go
in doing
home.
this job that people voted for me to do?
Yeah.
No, really. Congress is actually in session, like 4 months? Like
Yeah,
4
well, they
months
have
out
a
of the
ton
year?
of vacation time coming up
Yeah,
now.
like
I forget what the
they're
schedule
hardly in
is, but
session.
it's a ton, especially in the
Yeah.
summer. They pretty much have the whole summer off.
Like how dare you? How
Yeah.
dare you say something like that?
Yeah, I want to go
Like
home.
yeah, okay, people know how you're going to vote. You can't give a floor speech. You can't try to draw attention to how
Right.
bad this bill is, like
Right.
Kelly is doing, like many others are doing. Like you don't consider that in your purview? You don't consider that part of your job? And these people get paid a lot of fucking money to do this job.
It's the most absurd thing to say. Like 99% of votes that these people take are votes where they know what the outcome is going to be, right? Like you know what the outcome is going to be in 99% of cases. There's all kinds of bills we
why
don't
show
hear
up
about.
at all?
Right. So by
They
that
should
logic,
be able to vote remotely from home, right?
right, or just
why
not
even
vote
do
at all.
that?
Like if you know the majority party has enough votes to pass it, and you're in the minority,
Yeah.
then just don't vote for the
Yeah,
bills that you
sure.
know you can't pass. I mean, it goes without saying, but yes, obviously that is the job. So very simply put, you have to do your job. But also, if you are a senator or a congressperson and you have a decades-long record of service in government, what constitutes that record is your votes. Like that's how people decide whether to support you or not support you in the future based on your voting record.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
did you vote
Exactly.
for the big beautiful
Right.
bill? Yes or no? You have to register that even if you're going to lose the vote. You have to register that so that your constituents have you on record as being in support of or in opposition to X bill. So even when it's of no, drastic consequence in terms of like you're not casting the deciding vote, it's a vote in vain because the thing you don't like is going to pass anyway, or the thing you do like is going to fail, whatever. Yeah, you have to register your opinion. That's the job. That's the job. And that's how people judge you moving forward. It sounds like when did he win? He won in 2022. So this is his first term, right? So he's probably not going to run again. Sounds like he doesn't really want to be there. I mean, I can't imagine him seeking re-election.
I don't know, man. It seems like he just he likes the perks, but he doesn't want to do the job.
He doesn't want to do the
And
job. Yeah.
I don't see any reason he's not just going to decide he can keep coasting. And he may be
see.
right. He may
Maybe.
be right. If they
Maybe.
run another, crudité candidate against him,
Yeah, right.
might win
exactly.
again.
Well, it depends on what 2028 holds.
Yeah,
that's
you
for
know
sure.
the Mossad's going to be pulling for him.
They will be pulling for him. He's got that locked down, 100%. Eric Cousseau says the donkey and elephant should be replaced with a snake and an alligator. Yes,
Right,
indeed.
right.
Good one, my friend. Appreciate that. All right. We will take a quick game break, a pause for a word from our supporters here. So if you would like to join the Cool Kids Club, you can do so by going to dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/locals. Perks are the same, dealer's choice, whichever forum you choose. But your support is what keeps the show going. We just did a film club episode last night on A Boy and His Dog. That was really fun. So thanks to everybody who showed up for that. You also get your name up in lights here on the scroll. You get call-in access to our Q&As, which happen every Sunday night after the main show, exclusively on Rumble. You also get post-games once a month. We keep the stream going and do exclusive segments for members only, plus we take calls from the members. So it's a great community of members. You guys keep the show going. We get to know each other. We get to talk to you guys every so often, at least once a week, if not more, because you get that weekly Q&A, and you help keep the show going, and you get the good karma of supporting independent media. So that's dudissidents.com/Patreon, /Substack, or /locals, One other perk that you guys get that people have been enjoying a lot is you get an ad-free replay of every live stream emailed to you the day after it airs. So if you miss a show or you only catch part of it and you want to watch it back without ad interruptions, we email you a private video link where you can watch each show the day after uninterrupted by ads. So those are the perks. Thank you very much for your support. Like I said, we could not do this show without our members. So thank you all very, very much for that. We also want to, while we are paused here, make mention of course, our project that we have going on Rumble with our friend Misty Winston. That is, of course, the Misty Winston Show, which goes live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I just texted Misty about a guest for tomorrow. She had a guest fall through for health issues, so we were not able to plug the exact guest for tomorrow. But we will be live either way, 8 p.m. tomorrow. That's exclusively on Rumble, so make sure you're following our Rumble channel so that you get to watch those live. DoDissidents.com/Rumble. That's an uncensored show. It streams to Rumble and X, and then we post clips to YouTube. So DoDissidents.com/Rumble. That takes you to this very live stream. And while you're there, hit the follow button so you can catch Misty's show live when they happen once a week, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Where are we at now? All right. Segment number 7, moving right along today, doing a very professional job this afternoon. Yep, crushing it, as they say. All right, folks. So there's a meeting at the White House next week, Monday, a week from yesterday. Netanyahu to visit the White House. This will be his third visit of the Trump administration. President Trump will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu next week to discuss the aftermath of strikes against Iran, trade issues, and next steps related to Israel's war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the fate of hostages held there. The two leaders are expected to meet at the White House on Monday. So here is Donald Trump at Alligator Alcatraz, asked what's on the agenda. He calls it a very quick celebration with Netanyahu on Monday.
Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit next week. What are you hoping to get out of that? And do you think there'll be any progress?
Well, it's going to be a very quick celebration. We had a great hit. It was a obliteration. Okay, now it turns out it was an obliteration. You know, they demeaned CNN mostly and the New York Times, fake New York Times. They demeaned these great soldiers. They went over there 17 hours flying, and they hit bullseye after bullseye after bullseye. It all blew up. Everybody saw it. Then they get back, and CNN said, well, they did okay, but maybe it wasn't. Let me tell you, it was beyond obliteration. Nobody can even get down there. The tunnels are busted. Everything fell into the well. It was a total and complete obliteration. And
in other words, you already won. Please don't drag us into World War III, because my base is not going to like that. Really trying to set the stage for this meeting. He's coming here. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about the great success we had. In Iran, we had an incredible success, Trump told reporters this morning while leaving the White House for Florida, so those before he got on the plane, referring to strikes by both Israel and the U.S. on Iran. We're also going to talk about Gaza. Netanyahu, speaking at the start of a government meeting on Tuesday, said Iran would be at the top of the agenda. Taking advantage of the success is no less an important part of achieving the success, Netanyahu said. Again, does this sound like someone who's just going to let this go until the Iranian government is toppled? I don't think so. Trump said last week he saw the potential for a ceasefire in Gaza and pressed for a deal to release the hostages in a post on Truth Social on Sunday. So on Sunday, he gave an all-caps post here. Make the deal in Gaza. Get the hostages back. DJT. I guess that means he typed that one himself. But Israel has increased its bombardment on the coastal enclave. And while Netanyahu signals bringing military operations to a close in Gaza, he has not indicated he would agree to a deal. Speaking during a visit to an Israel Security Agency facility on Sunday, Netanyahu said that the attacks against Iran have opened up, quote, many opportunities. And of course, as that reporting noted, the attacks in Gaza have only escalated in these past days. 74 killed in Gaza as Israeli forces strike a cafe and fire on people seeking food. The day before that, Israel orders evacuations in northern Gaza as Trump pushes for ceasefire. So they're going to try to evacuate Gaza City. Again, Israel has ordered Palestinians to evacuate from parts of northern Gaza ahead of increased military action as U.S. President Donald Trump pushes for a ceasefire deal. People in neighborhoods across Gaza City and Jabalia have been told to move south towards the coastal area of al-Mawasi as Israeli military operations intensify and expand westward. At least 86 people were killed as the result of Israeli attacks in the 24 hours before midday on Sunday, the Hamas-run health ministry said. So Steve Bannon is not happy that Netanyahu is making his third visit of the year to Washington, D.C. He calls this awful messaging.
At the Netanyahu, the New York, people understand this. I spent 4 days up there looking at the data. It was a referendum on Netanyahu. You better understand this, because bringing Netanyahu to the White House next week is horrible, particularly if we're in the middle of this horrible messaging, because they still are bound and determined to do regime change. The American people have zero interest in this. They just want to, hey, we got it done, took out the nuclear program. President Trump ended the 12-day war with a catastrophic strike, game over. Let's take the win and move on.
See, so he says it right there. He understands. He says Netanyahu is still bent on regime change war. He's not buying that this was total victory and that's it. We pack up and go home. That's what Trump is clearly trying to signal. Now, remember when Zelensky came and Trump gave him a great dressing down in the Oval Office in front of all of the cameras where they spoke for about 40 minutes and then Vance took the first shiv there and then Trump piled on. You remember when that happened and we all said, oh, we would love to see him treat Netanyahu this way, but he never will, right? Well, now's his chance because he's coming to Washington. They're going to have an on-camera meeting, a back and forth. We know everything we know about Israel as a project, particularly about Netanyahu these past several days, is that he is itching to go back in. He is itching to attack Iran again. His own defense minister said that these strikes were just a preview, and if we feel threatened, we reserve the right to go back in. We know Israel's going to be pushing for that. We know Trump doesn't want that, but we know he'll give him that if he has to. And so you're going to see, I think, potentially a pretty interesting push and pull in the Oval Office on Monday, if in fact they meet in front of cameras. It'll be very interesting to see if they decide to do that, if they decide to appear in public together, and what that dynamic is. Of course, there's no chance Trump is going to talk to him like he did Zelensky. But I do think there's going to be a little tension in the room because it's clear that, you know, both parties are going to be lobbying for something that they don't want direct responsibility for. You know, that great scene in The Sopranos, one of the best scenes in the history of TV, is after Jackie Jr. robs the card game, both Tony and Ralph know he's got to go. But because of their own baggage, each of these people has their own baggage regarding Jackie Jr., neither of them want to be the one to actually decide to do it. So they try to put the responsibility on the other person. It's a great scene, and I think you're going to have a similar thing on Monday, where you're going to have Netanyahu egging Trump on, testing him out, feeling the waters. Okay, how much support for regime change is he willing to articulate on camera? And Trump is going to, I think, my prediction, try and make the case to Netanyahu and to the cameras that we won already, that it's over. But that is going to be really interesting to watch. And as you can see, Bannon wants no part of it because he fears the worst, just as I do, which is that the Israelis are still going to try and drag Donald Trump into World War III. And look, Bannon knows Trump a lot better than any of us do. I think one of the reasons he's scared about that is because he knows they got him by the balls and they can drag him there if they want.
Yeah, I don't think Trump's going to say much. You know, you can't talk a lot with Netanyahu's dick in your mouth. So he'll probably mostly just say like, oh.
Yeah.
It's probably most of what you'll hear from Trump. Yeah, man. I mean, he's owned by the Israelis, frankly, at this point, whether Elon has evidence or not. I'm pretty damn sure there are pictures of Trump with some of Jeffrey's girls. and various other compromising things.
Well, Michael Wolff,
And
as you said last week, said that he saw
Michael
the
Wolff
journalist.
said he saw the pictures. For what it's worth, yeah, I'm almost positive that they have very, very damning fan of the playground kind of blackmail material on him. I don't think it's just the money, because look how he treats Elon. Elon
Right.
gave him more money than Miriam
Right.
Adelson gave him, and he's pissing all over him. So yeah, I think it's beyond that. Yeah, the Israelis will not rest, and particularly Netanyahu will not rest as long as there's a single non-puppet client state in the Middle East.
Of course.
As long as there is one independent state in the Middle East, they're not going to rest until it's overthrown. Has nothing to do with terrorism, any of that. We just installed an Al Qaeda member as the head of Syria. We're thrilled with this Al Qaeda member. So yeah, obviously it has nothing to do with that. And yeah, they're not going to rest. There's what Wesley Clark talked about, the 7 nations. Iran is the last one. And when you look at things like what you reported in your previous segment about the cooperation between Vietnam and Cuba, I mean, the more you learn, the more you dig into things. I'm not saying Iran is a perfect state, but we're the baddies, man. We're the baddies on the level of critiques that are leveled against Iran by the United States. We support countries that are demonstrably far worse in all of those areas, like Saudi Arabia, like UAE. We're perfectly happy with countries like that as long as they bend the knee to us, as long as they serve our foreign policy goals. We installed an Al Qaeda member to run Syria. We don't give a shit about any of the things we say offend us about Iran. Not that it would be our business anyway, how another country runs its internal affairs. But that's not what it's about. This is all about Israel and the greater Israel project. And the only country left in that region that is an obstacle to that project is Iran. That's what this is all about. And Trump, look, I showed he tweeted out that Star of David with the money with Hillary Clinton when he was running the first time. I've said this again and again. I don't even think Donald Trump likes Jews. I think Donald Trump is probably basically anti-Semitic.
Well, that's what Max Blumenthal says. Yeah.
I don't think he likes Jews. I don't think most of the people around him like Jews. I don't think it's about that. I think it's about money, and I think it's about blackmail. That is why he's going along with this. Does he want to? No. You have the theory that he keeps signaling that we destroyed the nuclear sites because he's trying to keep Netanyahu from dragging him into war.
He's trying to get him out of court too. He's trying to get the heat off him.
You could be right that he's trying to eliminate the motives, but Israel's not going to rest as long as Iran is an independent regime in control of its own destiny.
Right, exactly. They're not going to rest. They're not going to rest. And this is, when you talk, we did the segment about Cuba and Vietnam. These places really just want to live. They just want to survive. And, when these societies are opened up, in the way that we think of a society as being free and open, meaning economically, what happens? The United States cannibalizes them and they become plantations for the West. And then you're going to cry when they become communist dictatorship. Well, what choice do they have?
Exactly.
Right? If they don't close the society off, they just get cannibalized by these predatory Western powers.
You don't give them the option of being open and independent.
Exactly. And so, I think it's pretty bad. I think it's pretty ominous. I don't think Netanyahu flies around the world for a quick celebration. I don't buy that. It's a quick celebration. No, he doesn't fly all the way around the world for a quick celebration. They are going to, try and convince each other of certain things. And Israel holds the cards. I think there's no question about that. No question at all, which means, I don't know how you get out of this except to say, hey, look, Donald Trump, one way you could redeem yourself for doing whatever shit that they have on you is by saving the world from a nuclear war, right? I'm sure history would be a lot kinder to you if you redeemed yourself through that than if you drag the world into nuclear war because you're compromised.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Right. There is some redemption in it for you if you can stop this. And it's going to take an effort to stop this because they're not stopping. They are not stopping. I'm as sure as I am sitting here, they are going to try and get this shit started up by the end of the year at latest. At latest. And I think part of Netanyahu's purpose in coming here is to test the waters and see what he could get Donald Trump to agree to on camera and on record. So that will be quite the meeting on Monday. All right. Brandon Guillory, Fetterman once again confirming that the convenient patsy theory will exist as long as the Big Ten only shades the moneyed interest. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that. Missing person, thanks to the $4.99. That's a nice nation you have there, Iran. It would be such a shame if something happened to it. Russell's mom voice says, thank you for that very much. All right. What do we got? Professor Brown Note says here, apparently Trump ordered the Iran bombing after a really bad Thai meal. Thank you, Professor Brown. No, appreciate that very much. All right, folks, we got one more segment on the day, one more song.
Okay, so we don't do a lot of reporting about our friends down under, even though they're kind of my collective in-laws. I remain married to an Aussie. So Khaleesi here tweeted out, this is a pretty horrible story. Australian police beat an opposition politician so badly that she might lose an eye. Hannah Thomas, who ran against Albanese, that's the prime minister there,
Anthony Albanese,
in the last election, was beaten at an anti-genocide protest. She was at the protest acting as a legal observer. The protest was permitted. They deny that. She's now allowed for her photo to be released. Doctors have said she may lose the vision in her right eye. So this is her after being beaten there at the protest. They were protesting an arms manufacturer that provides plating for F-35s, including, according to the protesters, for Israel's F-35s. So she put out a video here.
Jump on and say thanks so much for all the support. I've received an overwhelming amount of messages in the last few days, and they've meant a lot to me, so thank you. I've been very lucky to have been looked after so well at Bankstown Hospital. The doctors and nurses have been absolutely amazing, as were the paramedics who brought me here. I don't want to get into too much detail about the traumatic events on Friday, but I'm 5'1", I weigh about 45 kilos. I was engaged in peaceful protests, and my interactions with New South Wales police have left me potentially without vision in my right eye permanently. I look like this now because of Chris Minns and Yasmin Catley and their draconian
Chris Minns is the premier of New South Wales, basically the governor.
Anti-protest laws and their attempts to demonize protesters, especially protesters for Palestine. They've emboldened the police to crack down with extreme violence and brutality, and they were warned that those laws would lead to this outcome. I just want to finish by saying what I've gone through is obviously nothing compared to what people in Gaza are going through because of Israel. Children being amputated, going through amputations without anesthetics, people having to choose between starving to death or getting shot, lining up for food. That's happening right now, and that's why we protested on Friday, and that's why we'll keep protesting.
That's pretty amazing, man. Young woman facing the loss of her eye, and she tries to use her platform and the situation to draw more attention to Palestine.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, if I could just interject for 2 seconds, like if you knew nothing about politics, let's say you were like asleep for 100 years and you just woke up and you knew absolutely nothing about what was going on, and you see people on the pro-Palestine side, like this woman here, like Mahmoud Khalil, like the other guy, the other protester, I don't recall his name right now, who was detained in Vermont, Rameza Ozturk, Norm Finkelstein. You know, just take a look at one side and then take a look at the maniacs on the other side and how they act, just how they conduct themselves. And you would get a sense of who's in the right. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Just look at the poise of that person.
Shmuley here.
Right. Yeah, you got exactly. You get these people who just bark
Bobby,
and scream and rant. Exactly. Versus these people who are just completely
just a bunch
calm.
of weirdos and freaks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
A witness told ABC News that Hannah Thomas, former Green candidate, was tripped to the ground and struck in the face when New South Wales police tried to get her to her feet. Quote, "It was a very clear strike to the eye." Yeah, I mean, you saw her. You can just tell in the video. She's a tiny, tiny
Yeah, it's like
little
like a
woman.
twig. Yeah.
On what basis would you have to feel threatened enough to get physical with this woman?
Yeah.
What could she possibly have done?
Yeah.
New South Wales Assistant Commissioner Brett McFadden says he's comfortable with the information provided to him by police that there was no police misconduct in the injuries suffered by former Greens candidate Hannah Thomas. As a result, he said, quote, I did not declare it a critical incident. Declaring it a critical incident would require a further investigation, probably under pressure from the public, because this is really blown up in Australia, as you would imagine. He reversed that the next day. At 3:25 p.m., many hours after it was obvious to anyone the injury to Hannah Thomas warranted a police critical incident inquiry, Assistant Commissioner Brett McFadden has reversed his previous decision and declared a critical incident. They're claiming it's because now they got the medical records. You could look at her face and that would tell you. I don't think you really need the medical records to know that there was something there to investigate. But that's the excuse that they're using. Okay, love the name of this magazine. Crikey. Crikey. Okay, so this potentially is our future. This is fascinating. I know it's Australia, but I think this is very applicable to Western countries around the world with these Zionist governments, because it looks like they forced through a raft of protest suppressive legislation based on a false flag operation, and a very transparent false flag operation. So let's take a look at that. In February this year, in the aftermath of the Doral caravan hoax, more on that later, New South Wales passed new laws restricting the right to protest, and police were given additional powers to move on protesters near places of worship. Further, any conduct that could be construed as harassment or intimidation of worshipers could result in up to 2 years in jail. The laws also broadened the coverage of New South Wales's protest permit system. NSW Police has denied that the new anti-protest laws were used in the arrest of Thomas and other protesters, and said the protesters were given a move-on order for allegedly blocking pedestrian access to SEC plating, the business being protested. Quote, the new laws that have been mentioned during the media over the weekend were not utilized on this occasion, NSW Police Assistant Commissioner Brett McFadden told 2GB. However, arrest documents for one of the 5 people charged, which have been reported by both the ABC and 9 papers, included a reference to a protester being outside a place of worship. The flurry of legislation followed weeks of roiling media coverage of the discovery of a caravan laden with decades-old explosives and the address of a Sydney synagogue in the outer suburb of Doral in January this year. As soon as the discovery was leaked to the media, NSW Police said it was considering whether the situation was a setup. Australian Federal Police Deputy Commissioner of National Security, Chrissy Barrett, later contended that the AFP's experienced investigators almost immediately believed the plot was fake on account of how easily the caravan was discovered, how visible the explosives were, and crucially, the lack of any detonator. None of this stopped NSW Premier Chris Minns from saying the police had discovered, quote, a potential mass casualty event, adding, there's only one way of calling it out, and that is terrorism. The next day, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese unequivocally agreed with Minns' assessment. In March, by which time the anti-protest laws had passed, the hoax was made public. There is currently a state legislative inquiry looking at whether the public was misled in the lead up to the laws passing. coming to a country near you.
That's
So,
amazing that the police themselves thought it was a fake plot.
right. Well, because
Yeah.
apparently it was decades old dynamite.
Right.
No detonator.
Right.
They, I guess, left it out in the open. Who
Right.
would do that if you're really plotting an explosion? Look, we've been following the tactics and techniques of the Zionists for quite a while now. That is exactly their playbook. And hey, it would not surprise me at all to see this happen in multiple nations. Not surprise me at all to see it happen here. And with this administration, forget about it. I mean, they're already ripping up the Constitution to go after people on very thin accusations of anti-Semitism and hate crimes. That's all they need, man. They do the same thing here. It's not like you're going to have an administration that's not going to use that as a pretext to amp it up. I would honestly say it would surprise me if we get through 4 years with this administration without a false flag that gives them an excuse to ramp up their continuing crackdown on protests.
Well, I mean, look, a lot of that depends on, and this is why I say the Iran thing is so high stakes. A lot of that depends on whether or not the Israelis get their war. Because honestly, I'm a little surprised that the crackdown hasn't come even harsher already, to be quite honest with you. And so a lot of it is going to depend on that. In terms of policing of protests, it's really the only thing they can do, because the people in country after country are just so overwhelmingly turning on Israel, right? So
they are trying so hard to make. I want to be very careful. We're on YouTube. What happened in Glastonbury? They are trying so hard to get the public outraged about it, and it's just not working. Like, every time they try to gin up a defense of Zionism, people see what's happening, man. They can see a genocide happening before their eyes. You're not going to convince them that the offense of speech is greater than the offense of action.
Right. Exactly. And so, that means that the response is going to get more and more draconian, and the thing that will accelerate that by leaps and bounds is a war with Iran, especially if the United States gets involved on the troop level, right? So that is part of why it is so imperative that we not allow this war in Iran to happen. This is why people have to speak out as loudly as they can all day, every day, even now. And this is why I've been on the beat. And, I saw, Max talked about this. And, I think you're crazy if you think Israel is just going to give this up now. The hope that this would de-escalate to the point where this kind of crackdown wouldn't happen would be if you can pull back from the brink of that war and get a ceasefire worked out. But absent that, it is going to get worse. And Israel wants it to get worse. They want it to get worse.
I mean, you look at the hysteria around Mamdani, and you look at the writing around Mamdani. I mean, they're not going to let it go. I think part of what is holding them back, even now, man, even with all of this effort, all of this propaganda, most of the MAGA base is not down with this.
Right. No.
They are not down with Israel. They never have been. They, to the extent that they go along with it, it's because the boss tells them to go along with it, but they don't like this shit.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Carolyn Levitt is Coco Lovelock. Thanks for that. Thomas Soulier, appreciate that. Brendan McNamara says, is Netanyahu bringing his actual laundry this time? Yeah, didn't he bring dirty laundry to the White House like 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Skyman says, pass BBB, step 1. Step 2, economic social chaos. Step 3, false order via Iran conflict. False flag, maybe the police state really kicks in gear. Yep. Certainly something to fear. Thank you for that donation, Skyman. Thanks for the $20. That's very kind of you. Appreciate that. Let's see here. We got all of our Rumble rants, which means that, folks, is our show. Oh, Brad Gilbert, Aussie South Park. They took our guns, mate. SO2A. Thank you. Appreciate that, Brad Gilbert. All right, everybody. Well, that is our show for the day. Thank you guys very much for being here. Smash that like button on the way out. Smash that follow button on the way out on Rumble and the subscribe button over on YouTube. Misty Winston is live at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. And then we are back on Thursday at 12 noon. So thanks, everybody, once again very much for being here. Thanks for spending the afternoon with us. You guys are the best chat on YouTube and on Rumble, so make sure you follow us both places. Without a doubt. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.